Penzance.
Well, you're our modern Major General, I'll tell you that much.
I can't believe I didn't know you were in Pirates. All right.
We
We're
can
gonna
talk
talk
about it
about that.
more.
We're going to talk about it next.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to X's for Show, your premier media response show. This is, of course, our Saturday update. You can check us out on all your socials over at X's for Show. As for me, I'm Nico, and you guys can check me out at Nico Action everywhere on the interwebs. That's NICOACTION. But if you search too deep, I might find myself on an episode of Only Murders in the Building.
And you can find me at
What's your
TK
name?
Elemental. What?
What's your name?
Oh, I'm
What's the matter with
TK. You can find
Oh,
me
yeah.
at TK Element. That's my name. And that's where you can find me. Oh, I had a good Selena Gomez. I think she can make it in this world.
She's the best. She's the bee's knees. And I am
just
your
put out one
Yeah.
good single. Go ahead. Sorry.
and I'm your producer. You can find me at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. Oh, all is not okay in Oklahoma. I've been I was gonna make my joke about the podcast from the first season of Only Murders, and I can't remember it. And then it popped into my head, and instead of making the joke, I shouted the title. So that's the kind of show you have in store for you folks.
This is where
We're here to talk. We're here to talk about a lot of our favorite shows, but mostly up front, we're talking about some murders in some buildings, some murder buildings.
So, for those of you who don't know, Only Murders in the Building is the unbelievable brainchild of Steve Martin and a number of other creators, but Steve Martin's name is the name that's on the most things. It's led by Steve Martin, Martin Short, and, of course, Selena Gomez. They are unlikely friends living in a beautiful building. The show is as much a love song to New York architecture, and I feel like I'm going to say this term, and it can be taken a different way than I mean, but it literally is a love song to a New York sense of humor. There are so many things that are jokes that if you just have never lived within 40 minutes of any of the bridges, you're not going to get them.
This is up there. This is up there with Friends and Sex and the City to me as one of the iconic New York shows that if you go with it, you will understand a bit what it is to live in New York. You will also understand the fantasy that we all have in our hearts when we live in New York, when you're in a disgusting fifth floor walk up and you're like, I'm Carrie Bradshaw, because as we were talking about before the show, Carrie Bradshaw's not real. That life is not real. That is New York wish fulfillment. And
okay, but the best
Martin
part of
Short
that
cannot afford this apartment that in the
No.
first season, he literally is trying to get a check from his son. So again, it's just it's so iconic New York, but it's also iconic New York TV in that none of it is physically possible.
Well, and even the real life Carrie Bradshaw, Sarah Jessica Parker, takes the subway. She doesn't take taxis, whereas Carrie is defined, of course, by hopping in and out of taxis. And to that end, I think one of the things that's so funny is we're not talking about any, there's no schlubbies in this show. We're talking about Steve Martin, who in his day, was a powerhouse of cinematic proportions, could absolutely be one of the top 5 comedians out on tour at any given point. And let us not forget his contributions to the banjonic arts.
No.
Martin Short, I just want to weigh in on this. Selena Gomez, I gave her way too much hard time when she was a teenager because I was 20 and just didn't know how to be nice to people roughly in my age group. She's grown into such an incredible woman, and the things she's done, she's actually a very charitable person. Very cool. Can't wait to talk about her. We got to talk about that Martin Short hit piece. I have read it. I have read all of the responses. I've read 3 people talking about it on Twitter for 5 days. I've read everything you can read about this stupid hit piece. And
Okay.
here's actually the problem with it. That was just somebody's Facebook rant that got published. And the problem is the person whose Facebook rant that was had a LexisNexis account and went ahead and made the damn thing punchy. And it's that the citations used from Martin Short's own career to prove how talentless he is
were plentiful.
And like
there were so many.
Archivical. Like, you have to know
archival.
You have to know Martin Short's career better than anyone knows it to be able to take those kinds of shots at him. And I just want to be like, Mirror Universe, Martin Short, did you write this?
Are you in love with Martin Short? What was that?
Tell me, beast. Like,
tell me, Martin.
The other problem, I think, is that some people do not vibe with Martin Short's sense of humor.
Your loss.
I agree 100%.
I don't always, so I get it.
There is nobody really dislikes Steve Martin. I think there are people that don't vibe with Steve Martin's humor, but everybody in general is just like, that's one of the good ones.
And he's so handsome.
He is very handsome. I think, the thing I respect most about Steve Martin is he just kind of stepped off the roller coaster when he chose to. Yes. And, you know, every few years he hops on again for a little bit of nostalgia and just to remind you that he is one of the greats. But then he gets off again and he never bothers you with some crappy thing that you have to feel bad about because you love him. But no, this wasn't good. Martin is a balanced set of scales.
Truly. But
it is heavy with great and heavy with shit. And it balances out. I think he is also one of the greats. One of the top movies that just made me laugh as a kid was Clifford. Where he plays the little kid that's just horrible.
Is that a Trek with you? I'm not sure.
Hold on. I think it's called Clifford. Yeah, nailed that. That was, man, that movie made me laugh so much. So anyway, but I think Jiminy Glick is intolerable, and that Jiminy Glick is such a big part of a younger millennial's idea of who Martin Short is, kills me.
And that's so funny because I actually find Jiminy Glick, or I did find Jiminy Glick funny. I don't know if I found it as funny when we watched him on the Maya and Marty show.
That's another good one. Thank you for reminding me.
But when I was a teen, I liked Jiminy Glick, so yeah.
What I think the Maya and Marty show sketch, "The Earth versus the Land," the land versus the sea, is the funniest thing I've ever seen. In part because it is so. Maya and Marty is Lorne Michaels was trying to find ways to make as many varied forms of the same thing without ever deviating from form, I guess. When you're told you need to make an all cinnamon Crisco cookbook, you need to get really creative with how you use cinnamon and Crisco. And he was so set on finding ways to further capitalize on the viral success of SNL without losing some of what made SNL's classic years so classic, and utilizing the name recognizable Maya Rudolph and Martin Short. He launched Maya and Marty, which also featured the very strong contributions of Keenan and Mikey Day. And
is this also how we got the Michael Bolton Valentine's Day special?
It's the same kind of group of people, but it is not the origin of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, this has some really great stuff, but I will tell you the unfunniest moment in all of Arrested Development for me is this is just something that happens when the body is shaken. I think it is the absolute unfunniest minute of television ever. I remember Kevo showing me Arrested Development early in our relationship when we were but wee babies with only 2 or 3 baseball caps between us before we had the empire we have today, and him being like, "You seem particularly unmoved by this," and I'm like, "It is not funny." But so I get it. There's a variance here. I just need to say Martin Short is a guy who has been in this industry for so long. I just think he's worth celebrating. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think anybody who doesn't think the guy's never done anything actually bad. I do want to say, as big a fan as I am of Steve Martin, a couple of years ago, Steve Martin had a musical on Broadway. Unfortunately, the casting sides literally described every actor kind of required to be white. due to the period and the location, and it just made historical sense. That's not my scene. And he has since apologized, and we have moved to a better place. But I am definitely a guy who roots for this team, and I'm really grateful that they tend not to be super problematic. When somebody said, Selena, lose the bindi, she said, "Badun."
You're correct. That was horrible. That was awful. Yeah, Selena Gomez is such a surprise, kind of underdog for this in terms of like, you're probably like, everybody's good on Steve Martin. Like that's a plus in the sales pitch when you're doing this. Martin Short's gonna be kind of one or the other. I think for a lot of people, Selena Gomez off the bat was a no. I think for me, it was a no. And I think the idea of the three of them hanging out was a no, because I didn't believe that anybody would bother to pull off something that didn't come off as lascivious. And by 30 seconds in, but by 3 episodes in, I'm like, now I believe it. You see that those two concerns, that Selena Gomez is maybe the weak link and that the idea of them hanging out is gross and bad, they completely nail why that is not the case. And then the show is just like off to the races. And I think, however, some episodes are worse than others. Like there are low points in the show, but no matter what, it's solid all the way through. And the concepts are always 100%.
And the spin-off potential. Like, I can't stop thinking about how excited I am for possibly getting Grey's New Orleans Special Burns Victim Family Unit.
Family Burns Unit. Yeah. And just the cast of characters, they really, like the first season, they kind of repeat to you over and over again that the Arconia, the building that they live in, is a microcosm. And like everything is in there, and the world is represented in the apartments of the Arconian. And they show you a bunch, but I think they really they really tell the audience something that by the end of season 1, I was not like, I don't think you can pull this off. And by season 2, midway through season 2, it was very clear that they remembered all the way through that they made the promise, and that they were going to not only continue to show you more people in the building, but they were going to expand the backstories on the ones that were there in a way that buys every use of them as plot devices in a murder mystery.
I was only laughing. I'm sorry, I was laughing because you said we saw the inside of several apartments, and I was thinking of one apartment we saw twice when we saw it with Sting and Amy Schumer.
I mean, and now with the Cobra
3 times, because Paul Rudd is up there, so it's the Cobra apartment.
Cobra.
And I think that it's really taken the 3rd season to cement that, because I love everything you're saying about it. Showed that the Arconia was a microcosm. And I think it's really taken the 3rd season to cement the idea that there are so many microcosms to study in the world.
Yes.
And it really took the Gooseberry being a new building and there being a new building to have murders in for us to see how much more these characters can have to say about the world, not just about the Arconia.
And it's the fact that they've added sets that are not the Arconia, but they're always sort of one use or really tight and limited. The Gooseberry, with the exception of the theater itself, everything else is a New York backstage theater. They are the tightest, most uncomfortable, completely not laid out for human joy. The fact that you get a good performance on Broadway. Yeah, it's horrifying. The fact that you get a good performance on Broadway, and it's not like the miracle of these people's talent. It's that this is where they have to go to work. And that for more than half the time, they're in hell, and it's disgusting. There really are rats everywhere. I dated a lot of theater boys.
I just want to comment. I want to comment that so much of what we're saying, if you told me that in season 4 there was going to be a dream sequence where the 3 leads met the embodiment of the Arconia, and she was played by none other than Stephanie Germanotta, I think that would be. That's actually a phenomenal pitch. I'm sold. That is the experience of this show. This show is the embodiment of the idea that New York is timeless. there's people who talk about the identity of pre-Giuliani and post-Giuliani New York, and the difference is how many Mickey Mouse or strippers there are in Times Square. But I think the real thing that we're talking about is a shifting identity of what we understand a city to be. Many cities identify as we are the people of that city, but New York, when you move to New York, you become a New Yorker instead of adding something to the flavor of a city. Because trust me, if it's out there, New York's already got it.
Yeah, we don't need it. We don't need you. Thank you.
Speaking of New Yorkers, we have a native New Yorker entering our midst.
For as much as we enjoy being your trio.
Yes.
It's so good. This is also a very good moment.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
We have to bring in our very own, our very handsome, none other than King of Staten Island himself, Jonah. Now, Jonah, I just want to double check. Is your last name pronounced Haim or?
Yes.
I hate that joke.
Okay, no last name up
Hate
there,
it.
Mr. Cher.
Hate it.
Oh,
No.
Hate that joke.
Oh no.
hate that joke. Oh, that would be a great TV show pitch. Hate that
Hate
joke.
that joke. Yes.
That
It's
joke.
just stand-up comedians. You get one. You deliver
We
it.
got one joke, and if we hate it, we all just chant, hate that joke, and you get booed off the stage, and you're never to be
Yeah.
seen again.
Yeah,
Fire pit!
as soon as the strike is over, we're just like bitches all episode. Jonah, where can we find you?
If you want to find me pitching baseballs out on that diamond, you can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram and all other socials at Peak Jonah. That's Peak.
All right, so now we got to do a thing. Who's everybody's favorite? Who's your member of the super team? For me,
Mabel. It's Mabel,
Mabel.
man. It's Mabel.
it's Charles.
No.
Charles.
Okay.
Yeah, this season is really Charles
This
for
is
me.
the
I
good-
always
You're saying
loved
that-
Mabel.
Seasons 1 and
Yeah.
2 were the seasons of Mabel, but season 3 all Charles.
Charles is really problematic in season 3. He's great, but the fact that he lets the mom from Great News go,
Andrea Martin, and she is a Tony.
from 90210?
That is the guys. So
Hey, but
thank
that's
you.
her
There's three
real
things
name.
You have to remember to do every week. Okay, number 1, you need to remember to stay safe.
We're done.
Number
We're
2,
ending it.
You need to
make
call
Um,
Andrea Martin.
You need to
So
make
yeah, that he lets
90210
her, that
puns.
he blows that relationship, that he starts going to the White Room.
The White Room, which is
Oh.
absolutely Adam Shankman drawing the inside of my head. I don't even know what to say. My favorite television director of all time, directing one of my favorite shows. What a perfect.
Nico cried when he was on Drag Race, guys. I just want
I-
to throw that out there.
I like
Yes, he did.
absolutely.
That sounds
have an
about
obs-
right.
I have an emotional relationship with Adam Shankman.
that he
being
doesn't
one of-
know about.
First
Give
of all,
it
Adam
time.
Shankman is, we talk a lot about people who, get by on being handsome. Adam Shankman is a very handsome man. So when you see him on something like Drag Race, it's easy to go, oh, there's a chorus boy who worked his way up. And maybe he did. And maybe he was able to trade on his incredible looks. But what he has more than that is an unbelievable eye for directing on a small screen. And when you're talking about
Jazz
something
hands.
like this show, you're trying to capture the immensity, the macrocosmic power of New York City in a microcosmic screen. The dexterity it takes to compress down the wildness of these personalities into this small space. Adam Shankman's an absolute fucking king, And I got a Charles from Nico. I got 2 Mabels. Now, Kevo, it's 2 Mabel. They said Mabel. Kevo, for you, who is it?
Nobody listens to me. I said Charles as well. I said Charles is having a very good season.
I didn't
It's
even
always
say that.
Mabel. It's always Mabel in terms of like Mabel is great. But I feel like he's having a very good season. You feel like is there a reason you feel like Charles is having a bad season other than Andrea Martin?
No, I mean, I said other stuff. I thought the White Room was not good. I thought
Last
I
season
think this
he
is
did
a
invent
very
hip-hop.
I think this is a very Charles is a mess season. And like he has given a few in the most recent episode, especially with nailing the Pickwick Triplets patter song, which is a great moment, and I want to return to it.
Pickwick Triplets did it.
I've been thinking about it all day. I'm gonna get that one down. With the exception of this episode, it has very much been a wow, Charles truly cannot get his shit together season. And I'm actually curious to see how it pays off. Because the setup early on in season 3 is that Charles does not want to do this play. And that like
is my dream.
That should be okay. That the fact that Andrea Martin does say, like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. And then he ruins his relationship with her. He's a very complicated character, which is I love following him, but like again, Mabel is a Carrie Bradshaw. How does she have those clothes? She has no job. That she lives in the apartment is fine. She's renting it. You know, she's staying there for her aunt who is letting her stay there. I think that's a mystery. The fact that we don't talk about that more.
Not anymore. She out.
I know.
And now she's living with the cutest, most handsome,
cutest
character.
deaf man. I'm so glad that we have more deaf actor representation.
Absolutely. What a dream. The fact that they, as you know, I did it backward because I was so excited to do it on camera, and then I saw myself and my images flipped, and I'm like, no, I'm doing it backward. Oh no, the camera is. As somebody who speaks ASL not fluently, but makes it a point of pride to practice my ASL, seeing a character on screen who fits my same world, somebody who thinks that the needs of the deaf community cannot be provided for enough. It was just really great to see allyship and then true representation of the deaf community aside the allyship, which is so important.
Great character, great setup overall. Again, it's just the Arconia is a microcosm. There are so many different types of people there. And the fact that straight off in season 1, this is a character that comes up with Nathan Lane as his father. So you get to see, you know, another great at the level of Martin Short and Steve Martin, playing a really funny character who has a deaf son. So you get to see Nathan Lane sign too. And it's just like, it's really, really good right off the bat. That was one of the early ones where I was like, oh, they really are committed to this idea that the entire universe is happening in just the Arconia.
As a Greek dude, he plays the best overbearing Greek father. As somebody with a very lovable Greek father who is not unlike Nathan Lane, he does a really great interpretation of that. You know, the only hard part for me is sometimes believing that Nathan Lane would have in fact had sex with a woman. But other than that, he gives a stunning performance. But okay, we all do things. We have 3 seasons.
Yeah,
we have 2 solved mysteries, and I have to admit, my favorite mystery is the current mystery because I think 2 different people tried killing him. I think one person poisoned him, and I think one person re-killed him for good measure.
I think that's true.
All right, so let's start with season 1 for a second, right?
Yeah.
You know, all of us have a crazy cello player in our past. You know, Tim Koenig played a vital Kono. Thank you. Played a really vital role in giving us a reason that these 3 people would be united. I don't need to imagine that guys like, you know, Charles, who need to see young people to be reminded of what he believed in. Charles is so quickly disillusioned. It's not hard for me to believe that he could find himself just wanting to know more, even if Mabel hadn't been part of it. I feel like these people could have gotten pulled into that world in an instant.
My thing is, I don't feel that way. And I think that's one of the really great sales of the show is that it does not feel like these people should fit together. And the whole point of the show is doing the work to prove to you that while they don't on paper, it's working for the show. You would never guess that it would work. And again, I think that's why I was just like, no, this is weird and creepy. But like, if you invest, it does totally pay off. But yeah, like this is very much not like I feel like they would have they would work no matter what. Like they would end up here no matter what.
Yeah, I don't think they would work together no matter what, but I believe all three of them would get involved in the mystery of season 1 separately, no matter what, if it were presented to them.
So the slight problem with season 1 is the victim of Tim Kono only has a connection with Mabel. The other two are not connected to Tim Kono in any way outside of all of them living in the Arconia. So Mabel's the one who, in theory, drags them into it because they're invested in Mabel, and Mabel's invested in who killed her former friend. And I liked that about season 1, even if I don't think Tim Kono was most compelling victim, even though a lot of what we got about Tim Kono was not only specifically flashbacks, but it's Mabel's perception of Tim Kono. A lot of Mabel talking to dead Tim Kono isn't current day Tim Kono, it's Tim Kono's current iteration, but the voice of when they were friends. And so he's a very fascinating character because the only ever lens we see of true Tim Kono before he died is the moment where he's going back up the elevator.
It's very Lily Kane on Veronica Mars.
Yeah. Yes. Big
Lily
time
is actually kind of like I love her, and I'm not slut shaming, but Lily's kind of a mean, deceptive slut. And Veronica sees her as a superhero who gave her the strength to be a woman. And these two ideas are at deep, deep odds. And that's an incredible perspective to provide here, Jonah.
Thank you. So it's a very fascinating mystery because in theory, Charles and Oliver have no real reason to care about this outside of them not having anything to do because they're just rich and get to live in this very nice and amazing building, but they have literally nothing to do at this point. Charles is retired and Oliver hasn't tried to, put on a new play and musical in how many years after his last failed one of Splash.
It just didn't sing, Oliver. It just didn't sing.
Oh man, that lady.
What a goddamn performance. I can't even.
Hermione.
Oh, but I do love one of my favorite things is the random actual celebrity cameos that appear in this show.
Matthew Broderick is on it. I will take care of the role. I will learn it. I am Matthew Broderick.
It's the people who own Tim Kono's apartment.
It's me, Sting. Me and my wife Judy are very into Tantra.
Sting, Amy Schumer.
I don't have an Amy Schumer impression. Just, loud. I don't know.
I'll just take somebody else's joke.
That's fair.
Beautiful, especially because I've been telling that joke about Dane Cook forever, so you just took someone else's joke to make that joke happen. Nailed it.
No, that's a different show. But season 1
I just got it.
compared to where we know the whodunit of season 1 and season 2, I like the season 1 killer more because at least in my mind it was a little more compelling and interesting, especially the way that they tried to set up an alibi, all these different things of going into plotting this. Very, for the people who understand this reference, very Danganronpa of I'm gonna play my cello, but it's not. It's actually a recording, and all. It's really all that stuff I found fascinating, and I thought one of the things I loved about it in a twist is Charles using his acting ability to catch somebody. And it was something where, has anybody here watched Sense8?
Yeah. Wow, that's funny.
We were just talking about how influential Sense8 is on my writing.
Which is great that I brought this up, unprompted, unscripted, sight unseen. But in one of the cluster, I don't remember the full terminology, is an actor, my favorite second favorite character. But a lot of times they don't switch to him because his skills as an actor don't often come up. However, there was a particular scene where switching to him as an actor to get out of a dangerous scenario was really compelling and interesting. And it's, when you use your acting to lie in that kind of capacity, it can make for very interesting storytelling. And I wish that there was a similar follow through a little bit more throughout the seasons, especially with the other two as well. But I like that they did it in season 1.
So my question then, Kevo, we watched this basically weekly. I think we joined in by week 2, maybe.
Pretty early, yeah.
I heard Steve Martin had a show, and so I was like, Kevo, and I think Kevo independently heard it as well. The major thing that I walked away from this with was being impressed by how well the season 1 mystery worked in an age of television where I feel like the idea of a season-long mystery for a couple of years was a requirement. Once Mark Cherry said, old ladies like sex and murder too, we got the Desperate Housewives season package generation. And I will say we saw a reflection of this in shows that didn't actually even have that. Well, yes, that initial season, shows like Desperate Housewives, Veronica Mars, once again, and Lost all pioneered that idea of sometimes women, but especially unexpected mysteries and unexpected places. But there is a show that actually didn't mean to have a season arc mystery that was kind of forged together, and that's Grey's Anatomy. By choosing to break season 1 where they did and having the last words of season 1 be Addison explaining that she is McDreamy's wife, it creates a context for an arc that then is defined completely by this idea of these are the pre-Addison days. This idea of using that same model for Hulu-style shows, which I think is actually a reference to the idea of the BBC's series as opposed to seasons, it's really given way to something that transformed. Kevo, you were the most vocal, positive person I knew about season 2 trying new things. How did you feel about the season 1 mystery and the season 2 mystery where you had to keep telling me to stop getting angry that I'm going to ruin her last name, Cara Delevingne?
No, nailed it.
No,
Good for
nailed
me.
it.
Practiced, right? You were the one who had to be like, stop getting angry. Yes, she is, lesbian wonderkind, but you don't have to be mad that she's getting all this screen time. How did you feel about the season 1 mystery? And then how did you feel about season 2 as it unfolded? And I would love to get your guys, the whole panel, on season 2 as we move through the ages of Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah, you do hate a wonderkind.
I really do. Especially if they've got like glassy eyes. I'm out.
Yeah. I have to be honest, and I don't know how this bodes for season 3, but I have not really been satisfied with a single mystery so far. That's, I guess, not what I'm watching Only Murders in the Building for. I'm watching it for this cast. I'm watching for the jokes, for the writing. I did not love Jan as the reveal in season 1. I was not enamored of the actor, among other things. And then season 2 was just random as fuck, man. Ultimately, it works.
Random. The writing is sometimes iffy, but the performances are always high quality. I don't know. This is starting to sound like a Lorne Michaels production to me.
I mean, yeah, there it is. I don't necessarily expect to be satisfied by the 3rd season mystery conclusion. Maybe we will be. Who knows? What about everyone else?
So, where I slightly disagree, where I think that Jan wasn't satisfying in the way of like, oh man, but at least in terms of context of the story and the world that they set up, makes sense and it's in that end.
It works.
The season 2 mystery, I did not like the reveal because the victim of Bunny, who is the HOA president, head of the Arconia, who essentially makes all the decisions for the residents of the Arconia and talks with the board, is the victim. And I thought that was way more compelling because all 3 of these characters have an established relationship with Bunny, and it's, why would someone want to kill Bunny? You may really dislike this person, but is that enough to want to kill them? At least with the first one, it's like, oh, it's a passion, it's a crime of passion, it's a lover scorned. But the reveal was really bad because the motive doesn't match the victim. There really isn't a reason that Bunny was the victim for this, and it feels almost like wasted that somebody who has an established relationship was murdered by somebody who doesn't live in the Arconia. None of this. And besides this season making a joke, I like season 1 a little bit more than season 2. which I think is the sentiment of that they've gotten. My biggest problem with season 2 is that it's a little too magical and hand wavy in a world that's supposed to be set in reality. So much so that it really made me angry that one of the final lines is, I don't even remember what the character's name is, but she's like, "Oh yeah, and I found these like abandoned hallways in the building." You don't
Did I
live
tell you
there.
I found the floor plans for the building and there's all these secret hallways? Like, yeah, sure, okay.
It doesn't make sense. It
was a lot.
It was when this reveal is happening. You two can attest this because I believe I watched the finale with you guys. I was like, how does she know about this? It doesn't make sense. She doesn't live there. There's no reason for any of this to be happening. It does not make any sense. And then they give that throwaway line, and in my head I was like, you knew that this was a problem and an error and something people would point out. So you have to figure out a way to throw it in. And it's, this one throwaway line literally at the very end of the season, one of the last scenes we see, it's about her discovering these tunnels, and it's, no.
Breathe.
No.
Breathe, darling, breathe.
He works on floor plans for a living. This is a...
Yes, I do.
He do.
He engineers with schematics all day.
So it's just one of those things where it's, that twist can work, but it does not work with the mystery that you wanted to set up. There is no proper motive. The crime doesn't match.
Drapes.
The crime doesn't match the drapes. I did like the introduction of Charles's daughter. I thought she was a very fun character that was a very good parody of the idea of younger Gen Z.
Are you on mental health TikTok?
When she said, "Are you on mental health TikTok?" It was the funniest thing in the entire world. I was
the
like,
greatest
"Oh, they get it."
line ever.
So,
if it was a really good line, they would have said, "Are you on mental health talk?" But
And I understand that it's one of those things where, actors' availability is what it is, and I'm sure that is more of a factor than anything else. But I really missed that character this season.
Yeah, very much, because she added so much to the humanization of this experience. Something that is easy to overlook is Mabel's not a girl. She's a woman.
Yeah.
She's a young woman at that. And it takes another young woman who might have the benefit of a fewer chronal particles in her timeline to remind us that Mabel actually is like an adult. Mabel is not a child.
As she talks about this season, she's 29.
Yeah, she's ready to be treated not like the girl. And by having somebody in their teens come in, it allows us to remember that we identify this show in part by its celebrities. If this was Three Unknowns, it would not, Kevo, you beautifully pulled up that advertisement from before the show even started earlier. I don't remember seeing that. And the more I'm actually saying
This
out
one,
loud,
or?
no, the one of the archway.
Oh, yeah, this early one. Yeah.
Oh my God, guys.
Or there was even a logo.
That's the image for a show with three nobodies fresh out of NYU.
Yep.
That's the image for a show starring a couple of people trying to put it up on YouTube. That is not the, that's the image for a BBC Three show. That's not the image for Steve Martin Short, and Selena Gomez's Emmy-winning, Emmy multiple nominee series that challenges our identities as viewers to take these three people who we associate with very specific, very definitive careers and allow them to be new people that are kind of vaguely adjacent to who they are. I don't know. That is a big part of what I think about. Mabel would be a great character no matter what, but the fact that I associate her with this young woman I watched grow up and am so impressed by in her adulthood, it adds something to the show that it benefits from celebrity.
Also, I don't know if they were on season 1, but at least, and also for season 2, but all three of them are executive producers on this show.
I believe they were all at least producers. I know Steve Martin has always been an executive producer as co-creator of the show. They've always been at least producers, but I do believe you are correct that executive producer is a step up. That's definitely not something she had back on Waverly Place.
No, but it is something she had on 13 Reasons Why.
Man, when I saw David Henry post on Instagram that you should all go out and see The Sound of Freedom, I was like, well, I know which one of them's career I'm following.
Another boo.
So, all right, Teak, what were your thoughts on the season 2 mystery, and how did that lead you to the season 3 mystery? Oh, no,
You're muted.
Okay, you are in the grand tradition of Only Murders. You're performing a silent episode.
I was sneezing so much.
Achoo.
I recognize that the season 2 mystery cannot be solved by watching the show. It requires too many leaps, and that is kind of one of the central things. Season 1, by the time they start revealing, you could guess. You could have some stuff. I mean, and reality or television mystery shows sort of always end up doing this. They give you, maybe if you're lucky, if it goes on like 6 seasons or more, maybe 3 of them will be guessable mysteries, with maybe like a 4th later when they go back to an old formula. But after that, all shows have to start doing stuff to top themselves. And you eventually could never guess the mystery because you don't know that they can go to space. Like, that's not something you would guess.
Wait,
the Arconia has a rocket launcher in it. Who could have known?
The twins are quintuplets.
Right.
Ah.
Time travel is possible. So, like, that they went there a little earlier, not a huge killer for me. I totally recognize it as like a thing that definitely happens, but it didn't change a lot for me throughout.
And I think that's why we had to move out of the building and do something as a
because this is a mystery you might be able to guess, but as Nico said, I think it's probably going to end up being 2 mysteries. I think it's going to be because the character who died this season died twice, essentially.
Oh my God, what if he died a 3rd time?
Yeah,
what if
exactly.
There's a 3rd death and we don't know about it, but I do love that they killed him outside of the building and then realized it doesn't fit the title of the show, so they
they kill him in the building. But so I think as Nico said, that it's going to end up that 2 different people murdered him, and that's going to mean, even if you could guess based on the clues, which I doubt you would be able to if it's 2, you really will have had a tough time figuring out how the second murder happened, or, you know, the second one you could figure out how the first one happened. But it's going to continue to top itself, so that's fine. I have had essentially the same amount of fun throughout, and I've been just really impressed consistently with this show.
You know, season 3 is so interesting because season 1 toys with the idea of the meta possibility of their success. Season 2 plays with their success, but season 3 is like, what if Oliver and Charles are just successes again? What if people love Mabel's work so much they root for her? Now, this is, of course, the trap of any show, where if a show is on for 8 years and the show is popular for a couple of them, the characters always look younger in the final season than they did in the first season. But this show's actually kind of trying to play with that. The idea that Mabel may become so successful that she might want to do her own show, Bloody Mabel. Giving her own crew of guys. It was something we commented on, that there are 2 gentlemen currently operating in Mabel's world, and they are Taubert, her sort of love interest, who is Jesse Williams of Cabin in the Woods and Grey's Anatomy fame. And there is Theo, who is a recurring character, who is Theodemus, a young Greek yogurt magnate's son. He is
also a killer.
He had some trouble. But he allows the show to communicate through ASL and break the sound barrier, I guess. And so I was even saying to Kevo, if you told me that what they needed to do to accommodate some schedules was we needed to have an unusual season where there were 3 predominantly unrelated stories, a Charles story and an Oliver story and a Mabel story, you at this point actually have enough supporting characters that you could give Charles the Arconia and the people that live there, Oliver his unbelievable celebrity world, and you could give Mabel her small world, and you would have enough people to run this show in 3 separate directions, as long as they synced back up on a mystery at the end.
And I think we've gotten more of that as the show has gone on. A lot less, even in season 1, even though they kept them together for a lot of the season, by the end they were saying they can all go off on their own a little bit. They can always have their own lives. How they come back together is going to be what makes an interesting season. And how they specifically recognize that they want to be together on things, and they want to be, they want to spend time together. There are a few moments where Mabel in particular expresses that she would just like to hang out with them. Like she would just like to be friends with them. But then she is also the character who in the 3rd season is really saying,
no, you guys, we have to investigate this mystery.
Between Charles being in his mess era and not being able to compensate, like, oh, I'm not the greatest person, I am a narcissist, and all these, revealing facts about himself, and Oliver actively sabotaging the mission because he doesn't want the prime suspect.
Because he's trying to bang Meryl Streep. Say what you mean.
He's trying to bang Meryl Streep. He's trying to clap the Meryl sheets. He's trying to clap Meryl Streep in the Meryl sheets. And he's literally destroying. No, I'm right. And he's literally destroying evidence.
Who said you were wrong?
Everyone.
Mamma mia, here we go again. My.
By the way, Meryl Streep has the only size-accurate New York apartment on television.
We saw Mabel's prospective apartment once.
True.
That is true. Anytime they're like, you can't open the Murphy bed, but you're expected to sleep in it, I'm like, New York.
Oh, yeah, Meryl Streep's apartment is so charming. And again, it's just, oh man. Do
you think it's rent controlled?
I mean, it really would have to be that she has a tub, a separate bedroom, and that walk-up loft just for...
Well, she's been there for a while, and we know as a character she has had very
little work,
bad work, and she still lives there, and it's all furnished.
Exactly.
She could kill it as a journaler. That book she kept, that
her as a scrapbooker.
Yeah. Ben Gilroy journal.
Scrapbook.
Glenroy, thank you. That it ultimately becomes revealed to be a Dickey scrapbook. I did actually call and Kevo will back me up on this. I made the Dickey call a couple episodes earlier than they announced it. I was like,
Fairy episode.
Yeah, that's her kid. I realized that she's attached to this family, but not for the right reasons. Clearly, she couldn't have done it. Who did it, though? I don't know. I am excited to see where this could go as the season continues to unfold, because you get Meryl Streep, you get Paul Rudd. These are not small names. You don't get them to sign on for nothing.
You get...
No, he did sign on for nothing. He's in like 10 minutes of one episode playing the most unbelievably hyper-neurotic Matthew Broderick-style character of all time.
Inside the actor studios, Matthew Broderick.
That is what he does. He is Matthew, and he takes his time, and he considers his dialogue.
He holds his gun up here or down here. I've looked at
Oliver.
And Nova Scotia men, they hold it down here, so it's a little bit more comfortable. What do you think?
You would have been a terrible Ferris Bueller. You were 37 years old.
I'm not contributing to this. It's enough with 3 of you.
Well, but that's the thing.
How many just never worked out?
How many roles, how many things they've utilized that we do associate Steve Martin with having been in the industry for 40 years. We associate Martin Short with those same ideas. So when we hear something like Steve Martin went up against Matthew Broderick for Ferris Bueller, you know what? Yeah, Julia Roberts almost played Harriet Tubman. So
and I will say Hathaway was 9th pick for Devil Wears Prada.
It's kind of a bummer to me that they didn't make Selena Gomez's character a Selena Gomez-esque and or adjacent type of person, such that they could do...
Like she didn't have a Secret Kids Incorporated in Canada childhood?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it bums me out that she doesn't have that, so that Miley and like Demi Lovato can't show up for similar cameos. I know we got Cara Delevingne. I actually think it would have been better if she was playing Cara Delevingne, even though she is great as the character that she is.
I would love it if they got if they needed to get a psychic and Demi Lovato was asked to come in.
Yeah,
and
she's
play,
just saying to the ghosts.
but like she literally
Are
is
there
just
any
playing
people here?
Demi Lovato.
Are there any star
Yes.
victims here?
And then she gets upset that the pickle diner, she couldn't get the ice cream that she wanted, and she had to leave that day and go home without the ice cream.
Miley wants the apartment, but they won't rent it to her because
That's
they
what I'm
think
saying.
She's gonna have like raucous music.
This is what I'm saying. So like I just wish this a little bit for Mabel because I think these jokes are some of the best. The double layer of the Matthew Broderick into Mel Brooks joke, so good.
You never
Oh my
saw the
God.
producers?
Well-
it ran for 6 years.
The time
There's there's something that I really love from this show that is
Yeah.
something that Nico and I are collecting from a lot of our obscure comedies, which is, so we already love Jackie Hoffman
Yes.
from so many things. We loved her on like Difficult People.
Jackie Hoffman
We-
on the left, being a comedic genius who has been nominated for a number of Emmys.
And if you are a young person, I know she got canceled for a tweet, but we still think she's funny.
You know,
Oh,
old
no.
people. What are
She
you gonna
said
do?
something bad.
Yeah, she
We don't
did.
talk about it. We don't talk about
But collecting Jackie Hoffman.
She also gracelessly lost one of those awards, so we're not always laughing with her. So we saw her on Broadway in The Addams Family as Grandmama Addams, where we
my
also
God.
saw Nathan Lane and BB Newworth, and we have slowly been collecting a lot of different actors. The guy who played Lurch in that was Steve Martin's bodyguard in the 30 Rock episode that he is in.
Oh, good one.
I miscounted the men, Liz, is one of Kevo and my favorite things to say to one another.
Yeah, me and Jake too.
The guy who plays Wednesday's boyfriend's dad is the fake Bob Ballard on 30 Rock. Lots of other things. And then this season, Wednesday's boyfriend from Addams Family on Broadway is played by my boyfriend here, Wes Taylor, who I've loved to see, and is another really hilarious and fascinating character they've added this season.
Can I just
And
say these two
so
are my favorite
talented.
side characters in the entire world? They're so wrong in
I'm
ways.
so nervous that Wes did it because
Yeah, me
I really think
too.
it's going to be guys.
I just want to watch their video. I just think the two
I
of them are
love
so
him.
cute together.
when she
Flipping his
literally-
mom?
I was gonna say
No,
My
the
f-
bear and the twink.
my
Okay.
literal favorite joke is she kisses him on the lips a little too much and a little too romantically and goes, "He's gay,
He's
I could do that."
Okay, so I can do that.
There's
Yeah.
two different moments where she kisses him too long, and they're so good.
It's the Lucille Bluth that Fox could never dick up and give us.
It's Lucille Bluth if she was able to convince Michael to be her lapdog.
No,
Yes.
it is Lucy. Oh, yeah, because she's definitely not attracted to Buster.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
She
no,
could
she's
have.
not
That's
about the
great. Great read.
But
Uh,
he's still like 50% Buster. Like there's still something
Yeah.
about him that is so
I'm going to be a
ineffectual.
producer, mother.
If Buster had been hot, yeah, absolutely.
I'm so not surprised that he was in the Addams Family too.
What's the line? What, like the doctor? Like, what did you say to the pediatrician when he told you to stop breastfeeding me at 11?
What did you say to the doctor on my 8th birthday when he said to stop
Stop
breastfeeding me? Yeah.
I just, Kevo is actually a bigger fan of the Addams Family musical than I am. I think there's 3 or 4 songs that really steal the show. But if you're a New York kid, if you're a kid who grew up going to theater, if you used to stage door shows that you didn't see when you were 17 years old because you could only afford the bus ticket, you couldn't afford the show ticket. So you would take the 8:15 bus, you'd get into the city at 9, you would get to the stage door at 10:15, and anybody who dared to try and get to the stage door before you was still in the theater. Loser. So you definitely could get your hands on an extra playbill off of somebody if you just traded them a couple of cigarettes or something.
And
And
you waited.
and you waited.
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was 31 degrees. It really didn't
If
matter.
you cared, you waited.
And Kristen Chenoweth was always the nicest human in the entire world. And what I'm getting to with all of this is if you saw the Addams Family and you were from Kentucky, I kind of am sorry because it maybe wasn't the $135 you've spent. But if
No.
you're a New Yorker, if you're a tri-state area kid, if you're somebody who grew up in the theater scene, that $135 was seeing BB Newirth do the first full leg extension she has done on stage since she was in Chicago. It was seeing Nathan Lane in his first Broadway appearance since The Frogs, which was a restaging of a Sondheim drama at the Kennedy Center. It was seeing things that could only be described as elements of living in this experience. And that's what Only Murders is. I think sometimes about this one joke, and I bring it up all the time, I know, and I need to find a few more examples. But on The Nanny, there's this joke where somebody gets injured and Fran shouts, "Ooh, call Binder and Binder." And if you're from the Northeast, you know that Binder and Binder are personal injury lawyers looking out for you. Call Binder and Binder. And that's like a commercial that has played since I am 8 years old and continues to play now digitally. And if you don't live in this area, you don't get it. If you don't live in this area, seeing The Addams Family for $135 is a ripoff. No matter where you live, I think the quality of Only Murders is untouchable. But if you're lucky enough to get to see that skyline from where you live, Only Murders has just 2% more magic for you that very few things can come close to. I am grateful for the 10 seasons that Friends gave us for a depiction of New York that changed television's landscape forever, but that never once fucking looked like Central Park. Only Murders always looks, tastes, smells, and feels like New York, like only a day at the Met, followed by a night at the Port Authority can. How do you guys feel about Only Murders?
I want to make sure I give a shout out to Divine Joy Randolph, who plays Captain Williams.
Best Tam character on the show.
One of the greatest characters. I think the blueprint for how you could have a fat superhero.
Yes.
That is something that we're hugely missing from movies, TV, and frankly, comic books. It's... You know, the idea that like you couldn't have a telepathic superhero who was fat and still a super powerful telepath. And so, you know, or telekinetic, like somebody who could do physical battles, but not look like, you know, a Rob Liefeld drawing. Anyway, back to the original point. Divine Joy Randolph, who plays Captain Williams, is such a phenomenal addition to a season or an episode, but she's not a full-time character. Sometimes they use her a lot, and sometimes she is like consistently not there, and it's a real treat whenever she comes back. She had such a good episode, this most recent episode 8 of season 3, where it's all about her coming in and doing questions and interviews. But we've established since season 1 that she is a fan of musical theater, and that she actually has a beautiful voice, and that she has a lot of thoughts on musical theater. So she actually comes and shows up to be somewhat critical and or rooting for this musical. And, you know, the way that she loves this crew, even though they clearly drive her insane.
They ruined her cushy, perfect, like, achievement job.
Yeah, her crossing guard at a park job.
They ruined it.
But she still roots for Steve Martin to get the Patter song, and she's the one who jumps out of her seat. Like, it's just such a good moment. So anyway,
it would have been so easy. Just your point, and as a person who was 300 pounds, who, you know, has been as low as 150, and, you know, happily at 210. I love my weight. I love being a big guy. I would rather be chubby than skinny, though I'd probably rather be at my buffest if I could. I don't see body shape sometimes. I just think she's a powerful woman. I never think that she's fat by the definition of society. And it would have been so easy to give this role to the goddess of my entire world, Audra McDonald. And I think people would. They would give, you know, because number one, I do require it still go to a strong, powerful woman with a lot of color. Black women are undersung in positions of authority on television, and it's about time we change that. But so are plus size women. And, you know, I really want to applaud you for pointing out something that I accept so readily. I forget is a part of the struggle that needs to be talked about. This show challenges barriers I don't even consider.
Yeah, and I mean it's the same thing with having a deaf character. You know, it is the idea that there are so many people in the orbit of any one person in New York for any particular reason, and they're going to run the gamut. So she's just a really fantastic representation of that. She's a fantastic actor, and like I said, I think is really a blueprint for a character type that we see can be successful, but I think still scares a lot of people to take a risk on. And I think she's just proof that it's not really a risk.
And everything you just said, now all I want is a Dirty Water Dog pretzel so bad I can barely speak about it. A Dirty Water Dog pretzel refers to getting a pretzel from a hot dog cart. Anybody who doesn't know what I'm trying to say. Hot dog water.
Hot dog cart.
You know what? Likable people. No, difficult people. That was what it's called. Difficult
Yes.
people.
Not likable people.
Not likable people.
Difficult people.
Likeable.
Is,
Yeah.
Difficult People
Good.
is the most New York show I have maybe ever watched. That is just
Oh,
going
it's up
to
there.
comedy school. That is, I did not go to a school in New York. I went to a school that is considered part of the New York School Exchange. We had a train station that went right into Manhattan on our campus. It was the main parking lot for our school. We were maybe 15 minutes out of New York City. So you know, I was in the theater program there for many years. You were it was an experience. So this show hit something for me. Jonah, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to keep stepping on your genuine you're a real New Yorker experience.
I live in Staten Island. I don't know how real it is.
You were actually born within 20 years of two of the bridges that made Staten Island a borough.
And right by my house, there is still swamp. And I'm living my Shrek fantasy. No, I love this show. This show makes me incredibly happy. When you two first watched it, one of your first things you said was, "We have to show this to Jonah. We have to get him into this." This show has two of my favorite things. One, I love this so stupid. I love that Steve Martin and Martin Short have the perfect name for a before and after in Jeopardy.
And did you know that they're actually like best friends and they tour comedy together? And like, I am desperate. I actually asked Kevo, we're going to try and do a bunch of drag shows this year around Christmas, but I'm desperate to see their Christmas show this year when it comes around.
How many Christmas shows are we seeing?
God,
all of them.
If my life could be anything, my life would be Branson in November and December.
That's fair.
I love that Mabel is, if Alex Russo didn't win the wizarding competition, I was allowed to curse and just move to a different part of Manhattan.
You know, that you have always been a fan of hers. That you were kind of like, I know you're a Miley fan, but could you maybe be nicer to Selena? You know, like I've always been, Miley Cyrus is everything to me. She can literally make no mistake. She's a goddess. And you were always a big part of why I gave Selena Gomez another chance. So thank you so much for being part of what made this show probably my favorite show on streaming right now, part of my life.
You know, and it's so sweet that you bring that up. I've been a fan of Selena Gomez for a very, very long time. Like, there really isn't much to say of like how impactful certain Disney and Nickelodeon live action shows have really been on. What?
Not you.
Nothing. Nothing. Producer stuff. Continue.
Wow, laughing during my monologue.
Producer stuff. Continue.
You're very funny. Your monologue was excellent. I was moved to laughter. Some people get moved to tears. I'm moved to laughter. And I think Selena Gomez, a woman who lives in two worlds, and that is both the human world and the wizard world, would understand.
Both worlds. So Miley Cyrus is the one living in two worlds. The wizarding world is a part of the human. Anyway, point being, I've been such a massive fan of hers for a very long time, especially with such a very impactful show like Wizards of the Waverly Place, and getting to see her be an adult as I'm an adult is really cool and fun. And this show makes me scream, makes me laugh, makes me throw myself off my couch, all the wonderful emotions.
And, you know, that's the thing that I think is so important to highlight. In any 30-minute episode of Wizards of Waverly Place, you kind of get a musical's worth of experiences I don't care what musical you're going to see. It can be a funny musical. It can be a very serious musical, but the absolute experience of any episode of Only Murders is being part of the musical world. And I think that was something that was missing from the first 2 seasons when they said, oh, right, all 3 of our vocalists have been nominated for Grammys. Maybe we do something with that. And they gave into having musical numbers. Look, if you've ever gone, I wish Tori were here. Tori, is my smarter part, and she would describe a patter song actually probably a little bit more beautifully than they did on this show, which is the best description of a patter song I've ever heard. If you don't have Celine Dion, but you still need to do a number, you do a patter song, because a patter song really shows off vocal ability. That the Pickwick Triplets song is the most perfect patter song I have heard outside of Mr. Sondheim himself. Good God.
And I just asked Kevo to throw up this picture of Selena Gomez because I think this is just all what we want.
This is
out
why
of our
we
lives.
laughed, because we wanted to be this. We just started laughing. Jojo, this is literally why we started laughing. Like, that's perfect. Like, that's why we
Producer,
started-
stop.
She's just
She's doing producer stuff. That would be
the
me
way
as a
she is
producer.
living
Wrap up.
in this moment. Just get yourself a well-woven blanket
Oh my God, yes.
and get into the lobby of a Utah spa ranch.
That turquoise, do you think this isn't from somewhere in Arizona?
Truly, just live your best life. That's what Selena Gomez says to me every time I see her in any photo shoot. And as Mabel, it's maybe not your best life, but it's an interesting life, and that's what we live for. She also has the best interactions with Tina Fey, who another just totally unsung character, hilarious character. She is essentially playing what if Tina Fey was less successful and therefore exceedingly unlikable, but then very laugh-atable. And just, you can see that, like, Tina Fey has so much respect for Selena Gomez, and the character that she's playing so wants to have a chance to go back and be, oh, this guy was so cute too.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, wow, that is literally a hoodie that Jonah was born to wear.
She has the best
hoodie
love
becomes very
interest on this
important.
show.
Yes, she does.
You really get the sense that the character that Tina Fey is playing wants Mabel on her side and wants to be able to manipulate Mabel the way that she does to other young girls, which is another key aspect of the show. And at the same time, really resents how all of them have their whole lives in front of them while she is trying to reclaim this idea of her own youth and success. She's so good. Oh my God.
Perfect image. I can literally smell the
This
Continental
look.
Airlines depressurization, sort of like, oh God, I'm so glad we're finally here in Miami. Now I can
And
breathe.
this is this character trying to live that Selena Gomez photo.
Yes!
Like, it's just, this is such a good show.
It's not really in you. You can't fake it, bitch.
Yep.
That is, and it's really interesting because something that I want to give Selena Gomez credit for is I think she's probably a better actress than singer. And I'm not trying to be mean, because I think we often find ourselves in positions where really brilliant actors don't have the vocal chops to do roles and then do them just fine. Emma Watson did a really fine job in Beauty and the Beast. And I don't mean that critically. I mean, she did a fine job, right? Like, legitimately. I think Selena Gomez is showing me in the course of her role in Only Murders in the Building and also a little bit Spring Breakers, I can really see her stepping into the lead role in Sunset Boulevard, which is going to be currently portrayed by Nicole Scherzinger, which, I mean, I've literally never been more compelled to go to London in my entire life if I didn't think there was a 99% guarantee that was coming to Broadway. For those of you who don't know, my number 1 show of all time is Sweeney Todd. My number 2 show of all time is Rent. My number 3 show of all time is Sunset Boulevard. I am like over the moon. So when I say that I could see her stepping into a show as serious as that, though I wonder about her vocal ability, Only Murders in the Building is a show that's designed to exemplify the abilities of everybody in it, when I say I'm a Charles, I say I'm a Charles because I kind of feel like it's my job to kind of be the dopey dude. And that's a kind of a cool feeling to be. You know, it's like getting to be the strong one in a group of people who get to be other really beautiful adjectives. Something about Only Murders celebrates who these people are. It brings together somebody like Jonah who celebrates who Selena Gomez was as a teenager and wants to continue liking her now that she's 29 years old. But TK, you know, you're the hardest sell of the three of us.
Selena Gomez is actually 31. The character of Mabel is 29.
Oh, thank you so much. Of the three regular hosts, you're the hardest sell on something that is just like a nostalgia burn. So, you know, I want to start with TK, but then what is for you the one sentence elevator pitch that is Only Murders? I'll just say mine to get it rolling. It's a show that if you really want to know who you are, you can work to find the truth and find yourself in the process. That's what Only Murders is to me. And that's what I think it's revealed. It's revealed the ultimate talent of Steve Martin, the ultimate talent of Martin Short, and really Selena Gomez, an ingenue who has proven herself a legitimate tour de force.
Mine is what I said right at the start, which is that this is to me the third pillar. Friends, Sex and the City, and now Only Murders in the Building for the iconic New York shows that really give you both a sense of what New York really is like, and then also what everybody's wish of living in New York is like.
Yeah.
That, you know, yeah. So that's my pitch.
That's great. All right, let's go to Jojo. Are you leaving us after this? All right, Jonah. So give us yours and give us your sign off. And you know what? Just give us your favorite Selena Gomez song.
Oh my God! I was not expecting this question. Favorite song? I'm a slight normie. Actual favorite song? When You're Ready, Come and Get It. Na 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 na.
Good choice.
It's not a bad one.
Not a
Good
bad
song.
one, not at all.
And yeah, if you want to follow me, you want to hear my opinions on things, you want to say hi or do whatever, follow me on
Look
any
at your
socials.
handsome face.
This one that we're gonna do this.
No, show it. Look at that smile. Look how handsome he is.
You can follow me over on any social at Peak Jonah. That's PEAK.
I just want to, you know, add on that I'm going to be like basic bitch fall variety. Jonah just said hot girl summer, and look at him like anybody's hot girl summer. It's that kid. Right?
Wait, hold on. Can I retcon something?
Sure.
Actual favorite Selena Gomez song, and I think it's a good song. Recently came out, more recent than what I named. Ice Cream with Blackpink.
Listen to this boy,
Good
right?
choice.
Updated hot girl summer boy. For me, I'm going to be a slow jam fall girl. And for me, it's Year Without Rain, where I genuinely think she worked with the kind of vocal producer that moved Madonna up to You'll See and Ray of Light, moved somebody, moved somebody like a Paula Abdul into a Rush position. She really said, I want to be taken seriously as a vocalist. And I think Year Without Rain really showcases Selena Gomez's tonality, which is a real hard thing to learn, and she learned it, and I think that's impressive. So anyway, okay, we got TKs, we got Jonah's. Jojo, where can everybody find you? You did that? All right.
Wait, did we get TK's song?
Oh, TK, what's your song?
Oh God. Realistically, having listened to it the most, it's probably Wolves. I'm a little bit ashamed of that.
That's a really good song, though, so it's cool.
It's a good song. I think Lose You to Love Me is a really good song. I don't understand why it doesn't work. It doesn't.
Isn't it this guy with album cuts?
Yeah. And then Single Soon is not bad. I just really get the production going, girl. I'm rooting for you here.
So you're not an early Selena guy so much.
No.
Wow. Okay. You really.
I only knew about that song after Drag Race.
Interesting.
Jonah, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know. Anyway, go.
And no one took mine.
Ooh,
what's yours?
Tebo?
Love You Like a Love Song.
Good choice.
You know,
Beep, 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 beep.
When she was Selena Gomez in the scene.
She said pee pee.
You know, actually, that is something that Selena Gomez needs a little bit more credit for than she gets.
Saying peepee?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think about that time where her fans were sending her like love messages in like a live stream she was doing, and they were paying for filters, and she was like, "No, do not pay money to show me you like me. Just talking to
Yes.
me is enough. Do not
She
pay
found out
money,
it cost
guys."
money. She was like, no, guys, don't do that. I don't want you to do that. Don't spend
And
money on these
so-
things. Please don't.
Like, she's kind of like a decent person, but as somebody who understands how the industry works, for her to take the chance and say Selena Gomez and the scene, she literally had to cut into her profits simply to add their names. That's actually like a selfless decision, and I don't know that Selena Gomez is the best person in the world, but I am glad to give her my my fandom, my fanination, and I would not have done that without Jonah's recommendation and without Only Murders in the Building, which has been a really, truly brave show in an era of, hyper-produced same. So, Jojo, I want to thank you so much for being with us, for recommending Selena, and for always being the best sport about whatever the topic is when we tell you within 24 hours. And until you are on the next within 24-hour topic, which is like a very drag racy episode, very drag racy, I guess I have to
Very
say.
draggy, very racy.
I guess I have to say a bunch of the women
Race?
are going to be driving very fast. It's a very racy episode.
BMX bitches.
Which actually, guys,
Beep,
it
beep, beep.
references a
I
Camping
always don't
Down
remember that
Under
stuff.
film called BMX Bandits. It actually
Yeah.
references a thing.
Yeah.
Who knew?
We love a reference queen.
Jojo, we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Jojo.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
Now, we're going to take a short break, but I want to say a couple of things before we take that short break. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. We love making this show for you. It's not just something we do because we like talking. We like informing people. We like doing the research. And I did, in fact, listen to something like 45 Selena Gomez songs in the last 45 hours. Because I really wanted to be able to talk about her. I even listened to King Tut and some of Steve Martin's Grammy-winning banjo songs. So
But did you watch the Martin Short Canada Pavilion film?
No, instead the only
Ooh.
thing for Martin Short I watched was I rewatched the Kathy Lee Gifford is drunk in the morning and won't stop talking about his dead wife like she's
Oh my
alive,
God.
and he can't get out of the interview. I watched that twice this morning.
Can we watch the Ben Foster, Kirsten Dunst, Mila Kunis disco classic, Get Over It, where Martin Short is the drama teacher who's directing their performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream, but it's a disco musical?
I
It has Colin Hanks, Ed Begley Jr., and Swoozie Kurtz. This movie is real, everyone. Look it up. No, don't play the music.
All right. Speaking of play the music, you got that commercial, Rev?
Yeah, sure.
Do it now.
Do it now. Get me out of here. There we go. This was a fairy tale style anime film that used Mario as like the pieces for it. And it's why we had, this wizard that looks like a penis. And it's why she couldn't possibly end up with Mario because look at him. So instead we needed to have this weird
Princess
look like-
Bubblegum?
Thank you. I was literally about to say he looks like he's from the Candy Kingdom. You have weird stuff like Toad is a woman. You have Bowser.
You have the magic to turn into a teddy bear, but if I put you in a box when you're a teddy bear, I will be able to defeat you readily.
And who is
Girl.
this Miss Endless character? She
Yeah,
seems
that's-
like a nightmare. I
Yeah.
don't trust her.
No, no reason you should.
Whatever this is. This and now I'm seeing leg warmers, so I'm realizing was this Flashdance? I don't even know.
Oh, Kevy, I
Mhm.
see you. I see you are hard at work doing that unbelievable producer thing
Oh,
you do.
there
Kevy.
she is. Oh,
You
there's
are a
that
gift,
chick face. We
man. Thank
love
you.
her. Oh,
I'm
her
telling you,
shoulder
just
short is
like
such a great design.
as a guy with like size 13 wide feet, that makes me feel sexy. I could be that. I could be that in a big hat.
I was really I was into the classic Megazord. That was the show was coming on right as I was watching Saturday morning cartoons as a kid. Like that was like the perfect intersection. That and X-Men in the animated series, they were happening at the same time. That was it. So the classic Megazord always did it for me. But then a little later, I really liked some of the Zeo designs, the shapes. The shapes. It's all about
Zeo
shapes.
forever.
It's all about the shapes.
All about
That's
shapes.
I was.
Evo,
Mm.
I have to be honest. I quit Power Rangers the 3rd season because I got into like
Oh, there's
boys
the-
and yeah, and Kevo was like as an adult, like he was like, "Can we watch these shows together?
There it is.
Can we go
There
through
it
Power
is.
Rangers together?"
Yeah.
Zeo is one of the finest children's shows I've ever had the pleasure of watching. Truly one of the finest children's programs I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with. The characters represent ideals. They represent failures to meet those ideals, and then the desire to be better. And it's just a fine piece of television.
So, TK, I see your first entry, and I've actually been really curious about your first entry on the list
Ooh, yeah.
because I didn't know anything about this.
Did you really not?
I
No,
really
never
super
heard
prominent.
of this in my life.
Yeah, this is like pizza. Never heard of it. So
Yeah, I've never
I'm
heard of
shocked
pizza.
that you two, of all people. So yeah, back at the height of his popularity doing Battlestar Galactica, Ron D. Moore shot a pilot for a show called 17th Precinct, featuring it wasn't during the height of Battlestar. It was just after the height of Battlestar Galactica because
is that
everybody-
Jamie Bamber and
yeah, because everybody from Battlestar Galactica was on it. You had Trisha Helfer, Jamie Bamber, James Callis,
And James Callis. Yep.
but you know who was not on Battlestar Galactica, who was an enormously important person on this show? Abby Bartlett herself. Stockard Channing.
I have to say, I was super into Matt Long, who is pictured here with Abby Bartlett.
Yes.
He was on, was it Sorkin's or Berlanti's Jack and Bobby, that
the
Berlanti's.
WB show, and then he had some other stuff. But yeah,
Hey everybody, welcome back to another all-new X's for Show. One of my absolute favorite parts of my week is getting to sit down with these two amazing guys and talk about all of the things we love as partners, as a family, and as fans. So I'm here to talk a little bit with these two gentlemen. Not that I am here, they're also here to talk with me and these two, however you want to splice it. About some very starry stuff going on in the streaming sphere. We're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars Ahsoka and Star Trek's Lower Decks. Right now, that was not Star Trek's, like I didn't know that doesn't end in an S. It's like Star Trek's 'S Lower Decks. Okay, I want to start with Ahsoka because Ahsoka fills me with a very specific kind of feeling that's hard to define for me. I don't like Rosario Dawson by performance necessarily. I think she's an actress who has had such an incredibly varied career. It would be very difficult to always love every performance she's given when she's been in so many different productions across so many different genres, directors, etc. When I hear Rosario Dawson's in something, I'm like, oh, well, you know it's going to be done very well, but I do not know that it's going to be for me. Damn. that they decided that Ahsoka is always the B character in every single episode of her own show so that she never has to be put in the unlikable position that everyone in this show is constantly put in.
Bold move.
I think Rosario Dawson's performance as Ahsoka needs some sort of honor. I don't know what we need to start doing, that we need to come up with unique honorifics, but to say this is a woman who was already an actress when the character of Ahsoka was created for the television program and began being voice acted by a different person. And she is choosing to find a way to take Rosario Dawson and the character of Ahsoka, voiced by Ashley Eckstein. Thank you. Ashley Eckstein. And she is finding a way to bring it to life in a homogenized voice. I truly believe people think it takes, Tolkien writing Lord of the Rings and then Peter Jackson adapting it and Aragorn being played by Viggo Mortensen to give you that sort of transformative identity of character. I just think Rosario Dawson deserves a special honor because she is taking a recent actress's work and she is blending it with the voice of fandom to create an identity that is still unique but recognizable. That's the sort of reason we need to close the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Anybody paying attention to the comments that were made there? Thanks. Hey, what's up, Jan? I'm so mad.
This is one of the good ones, man. This is unique. You talk about the use of her in her own show, and I think it really speaks to also this is the contract that she signed, where she was like, I want the title name, I want the character that's the title name,
and I want 3 filming days a week.
I'm not I'm not doing this. Get that gorgeous Australian girl to do all the work. I am, of course,
I am not showing up for this makeup early every day. Yep.
Yeah, and that she managed to make that performance like actually special is pretty cool, because she clearly did say all of this stuff. Like, I do not want to do a Star Wars level of filming. That's hell. So no, and I feel like David Tennant.
Stop laughing.
No, it's hilarious. I feel like David Tennant said the same thing. Just like, I'll voice the robot, but I'm not putting on the clothes.
And that's so funny too, because I just saw a comment from someone somewhere recently where they were talking about how surprised how much of the series Huang is in, because oh my God, it's David Tennant, but like, yeah, he doesn't have to be there.
He recorded that in his house.
I'm about to say he did that in his study.
Yeah. He's sitting in a chair somewhere.
Yeah,
he's not.
Phenomenal job, but like Star Wars, yes, use the strengths of your universe.
Great use of a character who you can do that with.
Well, and the fact that they had all of Rebels, so the character that I was talking about before, Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who plays Sabine, she did not play Sabine in the in Rebels, and that's an interesting thing. We do get some characters who it's like, holy shit, Cara Thrace herself is playing her character from Star Wars. I'm talking about
greatest character in all of sci-fi ever is of course Starbuck, Cara Thrace herself.
Why am I not remembering her name right now?
Katie Sackhoff.
Katie Sackhoff.
Thank you. Katie Sackhoff, who voiced.
I would let her
character.
beat me up.
But you want Katie Sackhoff, is
yes, please, mommy.
Yeah, but I think, you look at a lot of the actors, the person who voiced Ezra Bridger is not a person of color. So that was not going to happen. But honestly, it could have. Like, honestly, they kind of, they do whatever a lot of the time. So like that guy, they've had people voice their characters and come be on the actual show. The Lars Mikkelsen, who voiced Thrawn in Rebels, is playing Thrawn, which actually doesn't quite work for me because he is a little fey and paunchy, which is fine.
Yeah,
he's a villain.
Can I tell you who I think he would literally give, and I mean an Emmy award-winning turn as, and I'm putting him on a pedestal here, Oberon in the Vertigo universe.
Yeah.
Him with blonde hair playing Oberon alongside Morpheus would be like, I could literally fall to tears thinking about the stories in books of magic that I have actually put TK in the lead role as Tim Hunter. And thinking about this actor playing Oberon just brings it to new life. But like, yeah, I do feel in some ways like I'm not the biggest Star Wars expanded canon guy. I think, I think about the way Kevo felt about me being like, Kevin, you don't understand the Scarlet Witch. Kevin, you don't understand. Wanda means everything to me. Kevin, you don't understand. And then we go to the theater and, she's just like in the playing with the energy bolts. And I'm like, okay, Kevin, that is not the Scarlet Witch. And
I
then she shows up-
apologize.
Yeah. And then she shows up in Age of Ultron and she's like, I will do terrible things to you with these appies. And I'm like, oh God, Kevin, that actually kind of is the Scarlet Witch.
Okay. Do you know what I just remembered, though, that I almost forgot? And TK, I'm not sure what your attachment to this actor is, but like yesterday, I just discovered that there is someone on this program that I am floored to see in such a capacity.
The
And
greatest
that's
thing that ever happened to Stargate ever.
Miss Claudia Black of Farscape, Stargate, Pitch Black, so many things.
Claudia Black, everything to me. So fucking perfect.
I wish these characters made more of an impression for me to be more excited about that.
Oh my God, they were I am literally walking away from all of Star Wars television with these three witches are my favorite thing in all of Star Wars television. I like them more than anything in the prequels. I think they are the best goddamn thing to happen to Star Wars canon since Ahsoka. Creepy witches wearing red like those stupid stormtroopers that didn't come to anything. Gay for it. Gay for it. Let me seed it. I want to make an entire Chi-Chi LaRue empire about it. I'm obsessed. They are my favorite thing in Star Wars television history. Get rid of everything else except Obi-Wan because you and you are my husband. I love you so much.
It's fascinating that they are the Dathomiri witches. That
so
this
good.
is
Everything to me.
where they come from. Of course, ultimately it is revealed that Darth Maul was a Dathomiri. And so, it connects them to a huge line.
Is there a connection between, I don't know that anybody knows, but I posit, is there a connection between Darth and Dath? The way there is between like Mac and Mick? Like, is there a connection? Is there perhaps
that is a fascinating question.
Could be.
Yeah. But it was just a really interesting expansion of the lore to see these three characters. And I think a big thing about Ahsoka and the Mandalorian and this era has been expanding our idea of what the Force can be and who has access to it. Because I think there was really this idea that it was just the Jedi and the Sith, and then some Force-sensitive people who are special because we need them to be, and that was really just going to be all that Star Wars canon gave us. The expanded universe, the all of the books and stuff that came before, Disney bought Lucasfilm and really started expanding the Star Wars cinematic universe, the original expanded universe, gave us a ton of stuff. But the Star Wars cinematic universe has been really conservative about this idea. And it's only with Mandalorian and Ahsoka that we're starting to see things like, we might have a Mandalorian with very powerful Force abilities in Grogu, who specifically is not going to be a Jedi. And we now have the Dathomiri witches, and we come to learn that magic is just another use of the Force. We have Balin and his ward, who are not Jedi. Balin was a Jedi, but he quit the Jedi Order. They are not Sith. They're mercenaries apparently, but they do use the Force. They do use lightsabers, and
he do be
Balin
daddy
is just a stupidly handsome man who Unfortunately, well, is no longer with us, so
Well,
real fucking bummer there.
I just want to add then, I have not heard them panic yet. Like, it does not
Right.
matter who dies, they panic. A person can be dead on a show and the show will panic.
Mhm.
Because what if they need to use that actor for flashbacks in 2 years?
Yep.
Right? And Star Wars hasn't said shit about it.
Yep.
So this
and-
absolute chiseled king over here, who is sadly no longer with us, Ray Stevenson, I believe it is. His performance is actually really stark. Because one of the things that I consider that I love the most, when anybody asks me why my favorite Jedi of all time is always Obi-Wan, it's because of Ewan McGregor's performance that made it seem like he had just to jump on the joke we made earlier, like a theater student's lust for Broadway for being a Jedi. He knew all of the flaws and all of the mistakes, and all he wanted to do was make it more beautiful for the kids that he took care of. This guy has that same view for his world. It's just a horrible view. So they didn't just give us a beautiful man. They gave us a character of actual conviction, which occasionally in Star Wars TV is a little lacking. People are a little tropey monster, not deeply filled with conviction.
But this guy's
got me hard.
I mean, this guy's conviction is his own thing entirely. This is
it's insane. It's demented.
It's not even necessarily insane and demented, but
it is.
It probably is.
Probably, yeah.
It probably is. We don't really know where this is going to end up. This is one of those things where I feel like when he finally is like, this is my plan, I have to do some really dark shit for 2 months, and it means I can save all of the orphans in space. Like, it just feels like God, he really is just so handsome. It's
I
stupid.
know. That's why I had to get this image
I just
up.
want to pull on that beard real hard.
And so big.
Really perfect image grab there, Kev. Oh, I'm very impressed. But yeah, so he is not tropey, but at the same time, like, the conviction is not. We're taking a lot on faith, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see where it ends up.
I really appreciated you pointing to the fact that so much of what is going on right now, and especially with Ahsoka this season, is leaning into the magic of it all, with the Night Sisters and with a lot of other stuff we're seeing. Because one of the things that I think has always been the undersold core strength of Star Wars is how much of a fairy tale it is, how much of a fantasy it is, how much it has always been warlocks and knights and princesses, literally Princess Leia. So having them really branch out and expand the concept of what the Force is, what it can do, who can wield it, who can do what with it. I'm really shocked they are going extra galactic so heavily before exploring so many other options. But then again, at the same time, we're coming up on the 50th anniversary. Almost at 60. Oh man. But still 50 years. Yeah, let's play with a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think because again, they are so conservative. It doesn't really feel like when we finally got outside the galaxy in the books and stuff, it was for some real wild shit. And they were pretty wild even with the like lesser known parts of the galaxy that they were in.
Right.
So in some ways you're kind of like, the other version of this managed to like find stuff in the galaxy you already have. Why are you going to another one? But at the same time, they are still so sparing. Like, it is just that I think we're going to this one planet and then I think we're leaving. I don't think we're really ever finding out about what this other galaxy is, what was happening there, what their capacity is to get to other ones. It's very interesting that both Discovery and Ahsoka this season went outside their galaxies.
And the thing, I know that there have been hints and seeds and things, and even going so far back as the first new Star Wars spin-off canon that they released in conjunction with Force Awakens. There were things where there were Imperial generals talking about how Palpatine had sensed a dark spirit from outside of the galaxy, and that now Skull is sort of hinting at sort of the same thing. Don't you feel this presence? And the thing about Star Wars too that I enjoy in a lot of ways is they'll do that and you can take it or leave it. We are hinting at things of this, but that doesn't mean that that's what story Ahsoka is telling, and it doesn't mean that that is necessarily tied into the film that they've said a lot of these projects are driving towards. It's just they like dropping these concepts and building them, and it can all build towards something, or it can just be an undercurrent that they can just play off of over time.
Well, and I was thinking about Thrawn's line about like this, you're doing all this and you don't even realize that like you've changed the fate of the galaxy to Sabine. And part of me is like, well, we know that's not true because by the time we get to Force Awakens, he's not even there. But the fact of the matter is, on the scales that we're talking about with Star Wars, it's possible that his plan is just not even at fruition by the time we get to Force Awakens.
He's just hiding in his own little side story, which always is a different distant galaxy part, or sometimes a different galaxy altogether. Kevo, you changed my life, and I've been trying to like find a way to like sneak it in. I was so emotional, I had to go off camera. I'm kidding. But Kevo, you shared with me that there's actually a dual meaning to Skywalker in certain parts of expanded canon.
Yes, there's been, similarly to the Palpatine hearing a voice from outside the galaxy, there's been stuff in other canon where it's hinted at Skywalker being a term in other parts of the galaxy, and particularly uncharted space, a term that they use for other types of Force wielders who use the Force to navigate through hyperspace, and that is a Skywalker in a certain story. Yeah.
And just that idea that even the things we're so sure we know definitively in the Star Wars universe are ever subject to these sort of manifold explorations and definitions is, I think, why Ahsoka is succeeding on so many levels, even if at times I do feel like it's never that the episodes are long, but, by the end of an episode of Ahsoka, I'm ready for it to be over. And that's never the best review feeling. I don't know. All said and done, I feel like when I watch Ahsoka, the thing that I'm excited about is the future of Star Wars. It reminds me that Star Wars, for something with, at this point, 9 core films and expanded, 3 to 5 films, at this point, something like 15 seasons of television, there's still so much to be mined from Star Wars that we've barely begun to scratch the surface in these sort of filmed media, let alone the books, the canon, the comics, the magazine canon. Star Wars is so complicated, it has separate magazine canon. That's crazy, right? But Ahsoka reminds me that all of that is still possible in live action. Just give it time and the right executives.
And so much of Star Wars is building and exploring things that are new while still understanding the things that make the franchise iconic. When this Star Destroyer popped up in this episode, holy shit, the dramatic effect that it had, knowing that we know what this ship is and where it comes from. Even if we don't know much about Thrawn's history, like those of us who haven't watched Rebels, we know what a Star Destroyer is, and we know that it's a portent of something, and that's just really cool.
You bring up one of the interesting parts about the show, which is that if you were a Clone Wars kid and you were a consistent watcher, there's a lot here that has a different value of meaning for you and a different path of getting through the story. And it has been interesting to see how this show does that job versus, I feel like, while Katie Sackhoff's appearance as names today, Bo-Katan,
Bo-Katan, I was trying to unmute. I was like, oh, he needs this name? I got that one.
I was like, I know he does, but as Bo-Katan, while we know it's a Clone Wars character and some of us have more experience of that than others, this just like, she's just a great character. They fully establish why she's there. You don't really need to know why, what she was doing in Clone Wars. You also don't need to know in Ahsoka, but it is clear that there is a lot to see. Where I don't think they're super like, man, you really missed out if you didn't watch Bo-Katan in Clone Wars. They really are like, no, everybody has history here. And it's deep history, including the history that they have with Thrawn.
Well, is Rebels the first Disney-produced animated series? So then is Rebels the point at which Disney can take personal responsibility for canon and thus would want to push you back to the reruns? Whereas with earlier Clone Wars, Disney didn't have quite as much say in the editorial content. And while they want the canon to ring honest, they're not as concerned with getting you back to episodes they maybe didn't have as much control over.
Yes. So the 2018 is Rebels. They purchase Lucasfilm in 2012.
Rebels is 2014 to 2018, and then
see.
exactly.
Yeah. So phenomenal point there.
Corporate historiography.
Yeah. So I am moved to go back and watch Rebels for sure, because
actually unbelievably yes.
Yeah, because it's things like I want to know is the Sabine and Ezra Bridger thing a romance? Is it kind of a will they won't they? Is that still happening, or is that all explored and ended in Rebels? How much contact do they have with Thrawn? I have so many questions and I really do want to go and watch it, but I am not squinting at the screen like I don't get it, which is something that absolutely happens with shows that have a back canon of some kind. And
I'm gonna make y'all watch Neighbors: The New Generation, and we're gonna have to spend a lot of times on Neighbors Wiki.
Yeah, it's soap operas are one of the better examples, but it happens all over the place. And I'm very impressed that I'm not constantly squinting at the screen with this show. And again, just that it is Sabine that is doing so much of the heavy lifting on this show that is called Ahsoka. That she was not really in at all this episode. And then like 2 episodes ago, barely in. I really do. I'm impressed with her too, for just being like, this is the amount of time you got me for, work with it.
I kind of need some accounting for Sabine being like, fuck the galaxy, I'm gonna risk it all for Ezra Bridger. I would love if they could lean on the fact that this was her Force instincts, something that they started to hint at in the last of the sequel films was, like we've been saying, that Finn was a person who had some Force instincts. He wasn't necessarily going to be someone who could be trained as a traditional Jedi.
Like being glucose sensitive, but not having celiac disease.
Yeah, I mean, you're joking, but something like that. And I think that leaning into Sabine's instincts being what led her here, instead of her just completely screwing over the galaxy, because my bestie, girl, there's people I haven't seen in 9 years either. But, like, I am not going to fuck over all of existence for that. What if he didn't want to see you, bitch? He could have gotten over it. Continue.
I just love that the Dathomiri witches have a temple that ports directly into a Star Destroyer when you need to do some offloading of ancient artifacts. Just iconic behavior by those 3 witches.
Well, and, to that end, that the witches have had so much of our discussion, maybe so much of our most positive discussion, though, Kevo, I know you have some reservations that you felt that they didn't make as big an impression as you were looking for.
Yeah.
I think the magic of Ahsoka is you do not need to use Ahsoka every minute for her to thrive as the central character, because everybody can't stop talking about Ahsoka. It's something that I love about the best structured group shows that still have a central focus lead. Even when Sarah Michelle Gellar was unavailable for filming that day, every page of a script of Buffy still pushes back toward Buffy. You know, I am lucky enough that my husband is incredibly patient with me and gave me time to come to Glee on my own. And every episode where there isn't a plot for a character like Rachel Berry, who is Leah Michelle's, sort of main central character, they might as well have named her Glee Berry so she could be the titular character. It's still everybody talking about her in such a significant way. Part of the reason I've asked Kevo to get through 7 seasons of Voyager so fast is because TK said, as my partner, that's his Star Trek. So I wanted to make sure it was my Star Trek. And so we've watched so much Voy. And part of what I have really come to understand about a show like Voyager is even when Janeway doesn't appear, they still say, well, the captain this, the captain that.
Yes.
Ahsoka has come to represent something so current in her show. It's sort of like when you go to your doctor, you don't need to say to the doctor, my hand hurts and my elbow hurts and my forearm hurts and my tricep hurts. You can say it sort of all hurts down my entire arm. That's sort of what I feel like Ahsoka is trying to say. It's never pointing to the individual ways in which Ahsoka is directly the central element of the show. She's the overall arm. Every single part of these components, it's not that Ahsoka runs through them. It's that they run through the time current of Ahsoka and her lineage, her trajectory. And for that reason, I think this has been a humongous success for Lucasfilm. I think they did a really great job with casting and the makeup, the special effects. The score is absolutely, bar none. I still think Obi-Wan is my favorite of the Star Wars shows because I am a simp for Obi-Wan. But
And
Ahsoka,
Ewan.
yeah, but I do think Ahsoka
This bitch is
is
lucky as hell.
Ahsoka is just pushing the unbelievable envelope for what I expect for a TV show to be able to do. And it's making it compelling from every perspective, even villain perspectives. I don't want to find compelling. How about you guys? Oh, wait, no, Memphis Piper. I completely... Nope. Okay. Oh. Okay.
So, yeah, no, I really get a lot of what you're saying, though.
Absolutely. So, how about you guys?
There's a lot of stuff that I am not necessarily picking up through the show that I am discovering through other things that I'm reading about the show, like the faceless dude from the beginning of the season who exploded into smoke. Was apparently like a resurrected corpse, and that's a thing that the Night Sisters do. And so I've seen people talking about these stormtroopers potentially being that, and so there's stuff that I perhaps could use a little bit more backstory on, explanation of. I wonder though how much of withholding information, especially that is readily available, is potentially doing it in such a way that they want it to be kind of a mystery reveal, that they can have it be an exciting thing when they reveal it for people who are watching it for the first time.
Well,
And I really respect that. That's a narrative flow.
Like Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings, like I mentioned earlier, he knows that people that have read it, but there's still a vast majority of viewers who maybe haven't read the source material.
But I guess the question's really going to be like, what else happens for this show and for the future of this era? Because we've got Mandalorian. I don't know if we're going to do another season of Book of Boba Fett, but we've got a lot happening post-Jedi, pre-Force Awakens.
Yeah.
That we have to kind of figure out and see how it ties into the future. And can we get viewers like you and I, Kevo, because I have the same concerns, through to a kind of unifying endpoint? Or are they going to need to eventually spell out some of that stuff in another show?
In a lengthy crawl.
Very possibly. Like, how are we
In an
getting there?
in Call of Duty.
It's a Nicki Minaj voice line just to explain things to us.
Little Nicky, take the galaxy.
But if they're not going to do that, do they have everything they need to get us to an end point where we don't feel like, I know where we ended up, but I missed like 18 things along the way that I feel like are kind of important to know how we got here. And that'll be just the interesting thing to see all over the place. Like I look at Rosario Dawson right here holding this lightsaber, and I just think her talking to Daisy Ridley and being the kind of mentor that unfortunately Carrie Fisher was not able to be.
That'd be great.
Could be a real game changer. And Ahsoka coming into the post Rise of Skywalker future of this series to pull her own shit in and maybe give us some of those answers for, for fans that didn't see everything in Rebels. But also to pull together, like, make the stakes high, make that thing that Thrawn said matter and not be a thing that we know doesn't matter because we didn't see it in the future movies, because those movies are such a small slice. That's the other thing. Ahsoka shows us that what you see in 3 movies is such a small slice of what's going on in the galaxy.
And I think one of the things that the sequels have going for them going forward as they start to build canon around the sequels is that they literally take place, the first 2 take place in about 1 week-ish, like in about 2 weeks, but those first 2 movies are right on top of each other. And the 3rd movie takes place 1 year later, again, all on top of itself with only a matter of days. It's like 48 hours.
Yeah,
it's backwards Rent, kind of. It's everything all at once in one night, basically. And then the first 2 are about 2 weeks. So yeah.
And they take place in a
space.
small sliver of the galaxy, of the political spectrum. So if you can, I think the greatest thing in the world would be for, Ahsoka to show up in the Rey films, and for Thrawn to be the villain, and for this time to set up. Like, his plan was so expansive that everything that you're getting in the show is actually like very early stage game, and the payoff will be post Rise of Skywalker. I also think that would be a real tribute to Dave Filoni, who is shepherding this thing with such grace and talent.
I also think it'll be really funny if we start to build this story out, and as much as everyone loves to make fun of somehow Palpatine has returned, do you think Poe Dameron saying Thrawn has returned from outside the galaxy and using the Night Sisters' magic, he's created a cloning complex that has helped Palpatine return thanks to Sith, like, any of that would have made any more goddamn sense to regular audiences who are coming in to watch just this movie? No, somehow Palpatine returned, and we're going to find out that it was all this extra crap.
And, the thing I want to highlight in what you guys are saying is that it's almost like by recognizing that the galaxy has to be an enormous place, there's room for multiple stories that actually do affect the same current of things.
Yes,
the same
and can
idea
be huge.
of the Force. Mm-hmm. And in that way, Kevo, you had a really important point, which is that 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, literally over and over again, although I think I might have done it too far back, when Carrie Fisher passed, your perspective had been that she wouldn't want the legacy of a character like Leia to be lost. Not just a, filmmaking icon, but a queer icon, an important woman, so many things. She wouldn't want the idea of her legacy to be done just because she had passed. But what if the idea of the current of strength that runs through a woman like Leia could run through a woman like Ahsoka in her own way, and we could see the idea of Leia continue in a character like Ahsoka, who could continue on as the Leia figure in an episode 10 through 35, because I assume that Rosario Dawson is in that league of celebrities that's going to live forever, right? And it's sort of in that way that I could see somebody like a Leia giving way to the modern identity of a Leia in someone like an Ahsoka, in the same way that when I think about the legacy of Janeway having been so marred in Star Trek for decades, I think about Captain Freeman and how effortlessly Lower Decks was able to give us a female captain of color, or a person of color who is a woman, however you want to define that, that two idea, this double minority that we are asking audiences to be, to accept is a captain. As somebody whose favorite captains are Picard and Janeway and, of course, the incredibly perfect Sisko, I am so excited about the possibility of the ever-expanding idea of what a Starfleet captain could be. Yes, of course, he can be a woman of color, but conventional audiences occasionally give pushback on this idea. And I think it's the idea that a character like Leia made a character like Ahsoka the idea of a powerful, strong woman in the Star Wars universe possible, in the same way that a Janeway made Freeman possible. And I'm just so grateful for a universe where Lower Decks is led by a captain who, once again, like an Ahsoka, when she's not in every episode, it still kind of comes back to, but what would the captain think, in a way that is meaningful? How do you guys feel? What is your general reaction to this idea of the idea that women made it possible for other women? So, Kevo, to your point, how does that change your perspective on not recasting Leia?
Yeah, and I really hear what you're saying, where because there are women to pass the baton to now, it's not as necessary to make sure that we have to keep the spirit of Princess Leia alive. There was a time where if we didn't keep Princess Leia alive, it would be, holy shit, what other women are there even? But yeah, exactly. We have a captain like Carol Freeman now. We have
Thank
captains
God
like
Aunt
7 of
Beru is
9.
here, defined by
Yeah.
her familial relations. Aunt Beru.
They've done so much in the last 5 or so years to build up the character of Mon Mothma, but literally, even up through Rogue One, she was just this white lady in a white robe. She wasn't any better. There's a
She was just
joke.
a member of the Miami transfer.
So she's
meant
actually the
Manhattan.
character. She's actually the character that Carrie Fisher plays in the Family Guy Star Wars. And there's a joke when she shows up in Return of the Jedi when Leia's like, "Who's she?" And they're like, "Oh, she's the only other woman in the galaxy." And Leia goes, "I don't like her." But yeah, no, we have so many other characters. We have someone like Ahsoka. Frankly, as much as we loved Leia and we loved the idea of seeing her as some kind of Jedi mentor, she didn't quite earn it the way Ahsoka did. So having this figure who is this action hero that we get to see, who perhaps we can learn got to spend time with Leia and is able to carry on the full Skywalker legacy, having worked with Luke and Leia and Anakin. Padme,
Anakin
probably,
spotlight,
technically, a
the
little bit.
greatest.
Yeah, so I think it helps a lot, for sure.
TK, your show is Voyager. Your Star Trek is the one that took the bold step of, and look, I'm not at all saying that any struggle is more difficult, but I would say, conventionally speaking, we do see women have more trouble taking leadership roles than men, and men across a wide variety of spectrum of cultures. You always, as a queer man, have gravitated toward, giving room for strong female voices. But the idea that you stood by Voyager in an age where even something you loved as much as Community was always making kind of digs at her with she sucks, not because she's a woman, but because she sucks, with a reference to the female Inspector Spacetime. There is a long history of fandom, myself included, and I'm so glad to have been educated, not recognizing the contributions of things like female captains in the Starfleet universe. And, you know, as we transition over to Lower Decks, what does it mean to you to see this sort of generation of women born of the women you've championed your whole life?
For me, it's one of those things where like I have trouble commenting on it because it's like past time. And you know, at the time, I don't think I really realized that Janeway was a controversial opinion, and that it was controversial to have a woman in the captain's seat, in the same way that like, I think I didn't really know when I first saw the original series how insanely important it was that Shatner did the kiss with Nichelle Nichols. You know, this is not like I'm just so progressive.
I went to school with mixed race kids. Like I had at least 3 mixed. I can specifically remember in
Even
kindergarten, there were 3 kids who were mixed race. And like, it was something we talked about. And it was something where my kindergarten teacher was always like, well, they are in fact half black. And so like, it was always a little too pointed to in all the wrong ways.
I'm so glad you said black.
Miss Podolak was really awesome. But if it was not for Star Trek, that wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah. And I sort of thought that the point of Star Trek was that it was really beyond that stuff. So like, why would it matter at all? That's just Janeway. That's just the captain that I like. She just seems cool. I like Voyager. I like the ship, you know, and that's such a thing. Like it wasn't that I was like, this lady is so worth following. I like the ship. So of course I like the person that captains the ship. I like the episodes. Of course I like the person that's leading this crew. And it took a while to realize how monumental a lot of stuff was. It also took a while to realize how bad things were, like exactly as Kevo said, the fact that the only 2 women in the galaxy are Mon Mothma and Leia. That's the double-edged sword of like growing up in East Coast liberal elite is like, my kind of assumption was that, yeah, of course you would have a female captain. You'd have anybody captain. Like that shouldn't be a problem. But thinking that to a point of not realizing what the world is like, and that's actually a huge problem. The fact that like, we still don't really follow a black woman captain in the real world. We're following an animated one, which I love, but like, we're also not following her. We're following the Lower Decks crew, which is a great
transition.
Bunch. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of, oh wait, hold on. Where's my Lower Decks board? Speaking of double-edged swords, but also specifically speaking of everything that we're talking about in terms of getting to see strong female characters and everything we saw from this week's Lower Decks and everything we got from this girls trip episode. And you know, one of the things I love about the season 2 episode where we see Tendi and Mariner go on their adventure for the first time is they specifically went out of their way to emphasize, I assume they got feedback even, how little interaction the 2 of them got to have in the first season, how little bonding we had gotten to see by that point between these female characters. And so the fact that they made sure right away to include Tavana and
T'Lyn?
T'Lyn. I'm getting all my names confused because they're all, you know, made up. But to immediately include T'Lyn in this and to have this really wonderful sequence, it's just really cool that, yes, what you're saying is fair. It's animated. It would be a lot cooler if we could start to see more things like this on live action programs. I think that we are seeing it on Strange New Worlds and Discovery, which is great. We need more live action programs as part of the problem. Strike strong. Hopefully we'll get more live action programs again soon and we can see more stuff like this. Maybe the headmaster of Starfleet can be a person of color. That would be awesome. Who knows?
And what I was saying was a lot at me, a lot at just like, hey, it's so great that we have a black female captain on lower decks, but immediately you have to check that and say like, it's an animated show. Is that such a get? Well, you're right insofar as like we do also have a black female captain on Discovery, and what a fantastic character to follow. But it's just so easy to slip into like, hey, we're good. Like Star Trek depicts the world that we want and we've solved the problems and everything's fine. And in fact, a lot of the times as a viewer, you really have to do more work than that. And so, while I do love everything about Lower Decks, it's very much for me that thing of like, no matter how progressive Lower Decks gets, I also recognize that in some ways it's a write-off for Paramount. And it is a safe place. It's a safe place to experiment, which I love. But then it's like, okay, if the experiment's successful, I better see you doing it in the real world.
Well, and I was also good.
Well, I just wanted to say, in that regard, I think that echoes the nature of the argument I've had against the assumption of fandom that the statement by a fill-in writer who did one issue of Hellblazer that John Constantine had the odd boyfriend here and there, that automatically meant that every writer who would work on the character would make the character queer. I wanted it. From the second that was said, I wanted it. But to assume that something like that would automatically become canon, Paramount could just as easily say, oh no, that was the animated universe. It wasn't until the Strange New Worlds crossover where it became impossible to deny the quality of the Lower Decks cast as absolute canon that we had that sort of freedom of worry that something like Captain Freeman, a woman of color leading a starship, could be erased, that is no longer a fear as relief.
I think that that's something that generally is a fear from a lot of this stuff, and I get that that is a fear that a lot of people have from like Prodigy, sadly. But I think, I agree. There's been so much respect already given to Lower Decks in so many ways. Even going back to season 1, though, when they had Riker on the Titan, like that's a big, pivotal bit of canon that they put in there, and something that I was really blown away by that I mentioned to you that I read after the fact is this is the first depiction of the planet Orion on screen in Star Trek canon.
Wow.
That is wild, and something that you and I noted that we commented on that really speaks to the theme of what we've been talking about in this portion of the show is how subtly they had underlined in this episode what a female-dominated society the Orions are, to the point where the mom was the one who spoke over the dad. There was so much focus on the daughters.
Mom walks the daughter down the aisle while the husband waits at the end of the aisle with the female officiant.
When we got to this part,
the dudes are hooked on the moans.
We were talking about it as we got to the sequence of the episode, and I was tired. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. I blurred out, and she's a mom! the efficient. And I was like, I meant she's a woman, but like matriarchal is the word that I was thinking about. But like either way, look at her. She's so much bigger than everyone on that pulpit. It's crazy. And
why did the largest officiant not simply just eat the smaller
officiant? Not just simply eat Bert. And obviously any episode that gives us let's be Mark Twain's about this. This was almost too ridiculous, but in a way that really reminds us, we're watching a cartoon. And it works out anyway, because you know what? That's Star Trek. That is Star Trek, where absolutely the guy would get in the wig and he would blow up and then he would eat a bonsai tree instead. And the boys would have to say, well, that's Starfleet. That is absolutely classic TNG shenanigans.
Well, and the way that T'Lyn is like, yes, I agree. They have become incredibly unpleasant since they have begun cohabitating. Is like one of those things where it's sort of the meta commentary we need. If they want to sell us on the quality of this is what's been going on. We don't know that they've been unbearable, so they need to convince us. What do? They can use a Vulcan. They can use a voice of absolute reason.
Logic and reason.
If somebody needs to communicate honesty, they can use a Betazoid. There's so many things that this show can do by virtue of using these sort of stand-in characters that represent not just tropes, but the nature of Star Trek's own fallibility in creating aliens that represent identities. The idea that an Orion is automatically sneaky is something that we see dealt with over and over again, where Tendi is constantly like, yeah, but don't write that down, right? Right? Because so much of it is true, not because we should think that about minorities, but because early Star Trek didn't understand better how to deal with these ideas, so the nature of these character roles default to those. Episodes like these, episodes like the Deep Space Nine episode, and so many more are why Lower Decks allows Star Trek to challenge its own paradigm with a sense of humor, so that we don't think that the writers are directly coming for anyone, but instead we're able to laugh a little bit with this thing that we've made allowances for and see how the universe itself does the same.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it. I do love Lower Decks as a breeding ground for experimentation, and for that to be a lot of really funny moments, a lot of what we need to laugh at for Star Trek to continue. If Star Trek kept taking itself so seriously, we would have really hit a point of insufferability. And unfortunately, I do think, although Star Wars has gone in a different direction, I think a huge thing that they're missing is a little bit of time spent being like, God, this is ridiculous. Because we know that they have
a little more holiday special.
Yeah, but like even at this point, getting a little even more meta than that, like just holy shit, this is so melodramatic all the time, and like I feel like I've read this in a story. Like I feel like this is very archetypal.
What? Something that they started to explore that I really felt for the first time this season of Ahsoka that I was very surprised by was the pop culture, was music. In that opening episode with Sabine. And I think what I really less than self-aware comedy about it that I really need from Star Wars just is general comedy and levity. I need everything to not be so dramatic. I need some things to be a little bit sillier. Star Trek is a little bit more able to be meta-aware because it's ostensibly our timeline having evolved into this, but Star Wars never was us with the suburbs and anything like that, where they recognize themselves as silly in the same way. But a huge amount of levity, I think, could definitely be injected into the franchise.
I also just saw that they changed it. It's no longer jizz music.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
It's like JAZST. It's like jazzed music.
Gashed. Okay.
But it's no longer jizz music, so that's done.
Bless.
But I feel like that we never got a chance to laugh at jizz music in universe. It's a real bummer, and it is the mitzvah that Lower Decks is attaining by doing this show the way that they do it. And just reminding us that like we all end up in just nothing but awkward, mediocre, not great situations. And we all are beautiful, special creatures with amazing lives. It is not just the Jean-Luc Picards of the world that we should follow because their gravitas makes their lives more interesting. That's television, baby. And like by that's exactly.
Yeah,
and by that same token, like we can follow the lives of the entirely boring, mediocre, unimpressive, often failing, and find just as much to enjoy. I think that is the real strength of this show. We're 4 seasons in, no signs of stopping. There are so many corners of Star Trek to mine. And this was such a good example that, this is the first time throughout these years we've had so many allusions to the financial extravagance of the Orion Syndicate in a way that is like post Elders of Zion understanding of wealth, in like the Ferengis are just horrifying Jew monsters. And because in the 80s they were like, that's like what a rich greedy dirtbag would be like a Jew. And what we've gotten out of the Orion is like, I think, like much more of like just a Jersey or Long Island sensibility of wealth.
Okay.
Yes.
With people that look like us but green. That's the
Oh my god, and everyone is so hot and totally roided out. Oh my god.
Well, and that
all
is,
of these tough, strong men are total simps for their strong women.
And
oh
I'm
my god.
so curious to know at what point the decision got made, because Lower Decks now has made that canon where, like, even in Discovery this last season or the season before with what's her name?
Jade.
The Orion Syndicate.
Jade of the Orion Syndicate.
I feel like it starts with a C.
Christina,
but her,
it doesn't matter.
The lady.
Jade.
There's no Jade in there, Nico. She's just a green person.
You're being racist.
They cast so many hot people just by accident on Discovery, and I love that, like, you can parlay that into a joke on Lower Decks where, like, Orions just tend to be pretty hot and they are wildly extravagant with their wealth, but again, not in a way that is like Jews. And just really fun. The pheromones jokes were just so funny. All the dudes that are hooked on the moans. It's just so good. So yeah, like I see no loss of steam from Lower Decks, and I more just like always go back to that thing of I can't let Lower Decks validating my view of how the Star Wars universe should be received stop me from realizing that there are so many people out there who will watch an episode like this and be like, oh, the men are simps. Star Trek went woke.
I mean, and it just, again, it's always been woke. And the thing is, even beyond it's always been woke, the jokes have always been this. Divana makes a joke, I think, at some point about how she has to slip into her Orion belly dancer outfit.
Yes.
Like, they were introduced as the sexy race of people. And so it's this undercurrent that has been running throughout the use of Orions, going as far back as TOS. And, you know, one of the things that Lower Decks tries to do is consolidate concepts like that in a way that makes sense, but also is still kind of funny. And I think that hugely speaks to, you know, what they're doing with the show. I think something that really speaks to the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek and the things they do and the casting choices that they make is the person who's playing Hera is Ewan McGregor's wife.
Yep.
Ewan McGregor is Wedge Antilles' nephew, and there's all this legacy stuff and whatnot.
I love that you said it that way instead of Wedge Antilles is Ewan's uncle.
And Tendy's sister, Mistress of the Winter Constellations, was played by Ariel Winter from Modern Family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the joke they went for with that. And, you know, I feel like Star Trek is always striving to make their story make sense, but is always looking to have fun and is never, at least I hope, trying to take itself too seriously. This arc has me nervous. Whatever this weird spaceship is that's causing trouble. Nico said that he read that they were inspired to try a real arc for the first time, having worked with the Strange New Worlds writers, and I hope it works out. But the thing is, I didn't have the same sort of problem that apparently a lot of people had with season 3 of Lower Decks, where they felt it was a lot less character driven or something. I don't know. I didn't notice any shift in quality at any point in the show. So I hope that taking this swing because of feedback doesn't do anything to the show that ends up putting people off in a different direction.
I think it's
I don't
more that like they have been hitting so much so well that they kind of have to branch out, and that they said that the writers and creators of the show said specifically that they were inspired by connecting with the Strange New Worlds cast, that they are still being inspired, that they are still experimenting is really important. I think this might not work. You're right. I think this ultimately might fail. I think it also might ultimately work perfectly. It might be a really funny send up of the silly arcs that Star Trek has gotten itself into.
Exactly that. And earlier, Nico, you were talking about Star Wars and you were talking about the stories that go in the background. And I thought that was the point at which you were transitioning to Star Trek, because the thing, and I got so excited, the thing that popped into my mind was this. And I thought you were going to point to the fact that there can be important stories and major arcs that are told in a giant galaxy that are still major and compelling stories that affect the world that they live in, but don't necessarily cross paths with everything that's going on. The stuff that'll be going on right now with the androids going crazy and the Romulan supernova, not everything is necessarily going to touch each other. And that's realistic in our world, let alone a world like this, where it is an entire galaxy of stories.
I couldn't agree more. And we have had an amazing 2.5 hours talking about all sorts of scripted TV, streaming all sorts of ways this very East Coast stormy Saturday. We've taken a look at the amazing Lower Decks from Star Trek, Ahsoka from Star Wars, and Only Murders in the Building from Hulu. I feel like Maria Menounos. I just feel like I'm going to tell you to enjoy the movie next. So we've had an amazing time talking about these programs. I'd love to know which of the three you guys are most excited about and where we can find you on the interwebs. Producer Kevo, showrunner extraordinaire, talk to me. Which of these three has you the most stoked, and where can everybody find you on the online?
I would probably say ongoingly, the thing that has me the most stoked is probably Lower Decks. As a concept, as an ongoing entity, we know that it's already picked up for a 5th season that is probably, at least to some degree, already in production due to the nature of animation. So knowing that that's something that we can rely on, I'm super excited. But in the short term, I'm really interested to see how Ahsoka is going to wrap up. Knowing that this is such a love child of showrunner Dave Filoni, I am intrigued to see what it will all add up to in the end. So that's my answer. And you can find me over on the socials at Kev O'Reilly. That's KEVOREALLY. Teak, my main man, the buddy I'm so excited to see real soon. What are your thoughts and what are your feelings?
I've really been like, since Nico started the question, I'm like, which one am I most excited about? This is very much a difficult one. I
love how much you assimilated Only Murders. I love how much you took to it. I think that's so great for you.
I mean, that's in a lot of ways, that's kind of the one I'm most excited about, because if that can be the best show streaming, Hulu, which is in a really weird place, like this becomes more about like the high-minded financials of the world and less about like which show is the most fun, because they're all so good, and like Paramount Plus is going to be what it's going to be. They have a really good set catalog and they seem to be just going fine. Disney and Disney Plus, and the Star Wars section of Disney Plus especially, seems to be good. They've got their rollout. Dave Filoni is very much a more hands-on Kevin Feige, it seems like. And it seems like there's a bit less of a Kevin Feige to do the productorial leadership, and that's more of a group thing. And so it's just working out really well for the Star Wars universe. Marvel is having some trouble, setting that aside. Disney's got this Disney Plus universe, and then they've got Hulu, which they are about to buy the final large stake in that Comcast held. And then what is Hulu? What is Hulu? What are all these shows? Does this make
We
Selena
thought
Gomez?
it was going to disappear, but it's not.
Does this make
Disney's
Selena
like-
Gomez a Disney princess? Like, what's happening? And with the writer strike in the mix, anything can happen with Hulu. And the fact that they still produce what I think is a show that I'm like, this is the one that I'm really excited for. This is the one that, like, nobody told me we paid $1 billion for you to be excited about this, so you're gonna be excited. And yeah, you know what? Disney, you win. Good purchase, and I am excited. Weirdly, Marvel's the one you're just completely blowing it with, but Star
So
Wars,
good luck.
you're killing it. And so, I'm so excited to see if Only Murders can mean that Hulu becomes something else, and that streaming shows really can take over. Because I'm kind of sick of broadcast television, and so I just kind of am interested to see what we're doing with streaming. So yeah, it's Only Murders.
All right. And
Nico,
with-
and you can find me at TK Elemental on all of the social media platforms. Nico, which one are you most excited about, and get us out of here?
Perfect. It's Ahsoka. Them witches did the things to me. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was that voodoo that they did so well, but in outer space.
Very intrigued by whatever the heck that's going to turn out to be. Yeah.
As for me, you can find me at Nico Action. That's NicoAction. And this show, you can check us out at X's for Show on all you soch, but you can also check us out Wednesdays, Saturdays, Sundays. Wednesdays usually comics, but sometimes kind of gaming. Saturdays usually a hot topic, and Sundays TV. Tomorrow on TV, we're going to be giving you guys a special episode from a special location. Shh, don't try and find us. But the other thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking all sorts of reality unscripted. So you guys want to be having a great time. And a hello, tasty cake. As always, your contributions are as delicious as your name. And until next time, we have 3 requests for you, and that's 3 only. Boop, boop, boop. So, number 1, you got to stay safe. Far and away, especially this week. There's been some crazy weather out by us on the East Coast in the U.S., so definitely batten down them hatches, put on your galoshes, and tell the rain to fuck off.
And if you're in Portland, Maine, apparently people are getting beat up on the streets, so just be careful out there.
Because of the rain?
No.
Great.
It's weird up
so
here,
we're not
guys.
walking. So we're
Number
not
2.
walking around this week.
I know the area that we're not going to. It's under a bridge. We weren't going to go there anyway.
Okay.
Don't go
number
under
2.
any bridges downtown. That's an extra.
Be
one
brave.
this week.
No, be brave. That's number
Be
2.
brave.
So
Be brave.
find
Cross
them
the
bridges.
bridge. Cross the bridge. Stay on top of it.
Never feel like you did that day. And number 3, you
No, you
gotta
didn't do
evolve
2.
daily,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's stay safe, be brave, evolve daily. I guess 1 and 2 are kind of at odds. But we're going to see you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. EST, to
Lock
talk
that
about
down.
some unscripted stuff, and we will see you.